Morning, guys. Got to start the meeting.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. This is the call to order for the meeting of the regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting at all special taxing districts. This is the March 9th. We call it a regular session, but it's actually not on a regular date. It's the second week instead of the first Monday, excuse me. But anyway, all board members are here, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance? Supervisor McLeod, would you do us the honor?
Thank you. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll begin with the first item, which is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address the board in the call to the public section? Remember, if your item is in here, we'll get to it, okay? If not, leave it open until the end of the meeting, and we'll continue with the next item.
I just wanted to bring this up. We have this letter from the city of Yuma. I'd like to get it on our agenda soon so we can discuss the merits.
Is this a letter where they are offering for us to use their meeting hall? Okay, all right, yeah, it was supposed to, well, fine, okay. All right, the next item is presentation, proclamation, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations, discuss presentations and proclamations, or may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. Again, no legal action will be taken. Is there any appointments? No? Well, then we'll move on to the presentation, and the first presentation is the presentation of the County Line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel. Are we ready?
Our Information Technology Services Department trains poll workers on cybersecurity in preparation for the 2020 election cycle. The Yuma Chamber of Commerce leadership class pays a visit to county administration. And while it's used to do good in Yuma County, let it release in the air and it could spell trouble. An entire day to talk about ammonia. These stories and more, this is your County Line. As you know, the 2020 election cycle is bearing down here in Yuma County. It's our recorders and elections offices that are hopeful that voters will turn out in full force and vote. In just a few days, the Arizona presidential preference election for Democrats to choose who they support for the presidential ticket in the fall will take place. Yuma County has 12 vote centers planned, and that means staffing those facilities. To function properly, each location needs approximately 13 election workers. That adds up to roughly 156 workers needed. Election workers set up and take down the voting location, provide direct help to voters, know how to properly use the voting unit, check voter ID, issue voters the proper ballot, and serve all voters promptly and with specific sensitivity to voters with special needs. And with all the new technology that has been incorporated over the years, cybersecurity training for poll workers is something they are particularly focused on.
Our cybersecurity team offered to train our election workers so that they're aware of what to look for, and that way they can avoid a cyber disruption at the polling places, the vote centers, on election day. And this adds to all the other work that our election workers do.
It's a grueling day for them, many getting up as early as 4 a.m. and working all the way into the night until they've dropped off the ballots collected to our counting center in historic downtown Yuma. Stay tuned, we'll be bringing you more important election reminders as the August primary and November general elections get close. County administration had the pleasure of a visit from the Yuma Chamber of Commerce leadership class, which is designed to provide participants with a vast knowledge of information and inspire individuals to become active participants in the community. County Administrator Susan Thorpe spent time with them, detailing the specifics of running a county agency. Things like the composition, leadership style of government were covered, as well as budgeting processes and priorities, all packaged to give them a better understanding of how they can interact with your county government.
It's for leaders in the community, up-and-coming leaders and existing leaders, to learn about everything there is to learn about our county.
The Yuma Chamber leadership class helps develop the leadership skills and abilities of those participating. You can find out more about the Chamber of Commerce on their website, yumachamber.org. Yuma County is well known for its agricultural roots and leafy greens, but a lot of people may not know about ammonia use in farming. With this use comes a lot of safety considerations, and your county is working with other agencies to ensure our safety. The Yuma Area Ammonia Days is a group of local businesses, public safety, and local government agencies coming together to teach how to respect and appreciate this widely used chemical.
Obviously, when we train together, we learn together, it only improves our ability to prevent accidents from happening. And if, unfortunately, we have one, then it allows the first responders to understand how they work with the industry, and it also allows the industry to understand what they should be doing before first responders getting there.
Commonly referred to as Ammonia Days for short, local experts present on ammonia exposure, basic refrigeration, and safety response topics. Your county's Office of Emergency Management participates in the planning and execution of this annual gathering. To find out more about these events and emergency preparedness, go to yumacountyaz.gov/OEM. Paying our taxes is just one of the many ways we contribute to our community. But what if we don't pay our taxes? The Yuma County Treasurer recently held a tax lien auction. In short, this is what happens. After extensive efforts to work with the delinquent property owners, the county may have to sell the lien to an investor. The new lien holder then pays the owed taxes. If we didn't institute these measures, those who do pay would shoulder an even heavier burden. And tax liens are an efficient way of collecting delinquencies for all taxing districts within the county.
So this is our first year we've had the least amount of accounts go to the auction, and we are seeing an increase in monthly payments. And before it goes delinquent, anybody can come in and pay as much or as little as they need to or can, and that really helps them so that at the end of the year they don't have to come up with a big, huge chunk of money.
You can learn more by visiting the Treasurer's web pages at yumacountyaz.gov.
I'm Elia Juarez, and this is your library update. It's an event 10 years in the making. The U.S. Census is happening this year, and the Yuma Library is here to help. Every 10 years, the United States government takes a census so they know who lives where and what kinds of services are needed. This is the year, and it's also the first year ever where the census will be taken via the internet and over the phone instead of in person, as has been traditional in the past. The Yuma County Library is here to help. During the next month or so, we will be offering several programs about what the census is, why it's good to take it, and how it could affect you and your family. For information on important dates and when our library programs will be held, be sure to log on to yumalibrary.org. Also, stop by any of our 8 branches and ask what the census is and when you can learn more about it. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Before we head out, just a little something coming we think you'll be interested in. Every year, Yuma County celebrates their employees during the month of April. We'll be releasing the names of the nominees for the 2019 Yuma County Employee of the Year and Court Employee of the Year, as well as the 2019 Safety Excellence Award winner. Here on the County Line, we'll feature the nominees during a special focus edition during the first meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors in April. Who's been nominated and who will win? We'll let you know. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
All right. That takes care of the presentation of the Yuma County line. And the next item, which is something we've been looking forward to for a while, not too long. It's a presentation by Diana Gomez, Chief Health District Officer, regarding the Yuma County Health District preparedness for a potential disease outbreak or pandemic. And I do want to say something before you begin. I do want to emphasize and thank you for the work you've already done. I mean, this is just a report, but I'm sure that in this report it will contain all the stuff that you've already done, which is plenty. And I want to also thank Kevin and Channel 77 for the promptness in which they responded and was out in the community letting them know that things were being taken care of by the health department. So, Diana?
Thank you. Good morning. Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. And yes, thank you, Supervisor Chairman Reyes and supervisors. We have been, the priority when something like this happens, this is a novel virus. People obviously are concerned, they have questions. So our immediate priority was to get out information, accurate information quickly out to the public, which will continue to be our ongoing mission. I'm going to give you a brief background. I think everybody's pretty familiar with what it is, but just to review for everybody, coronavirus is a new strain that we started seeing spreading in China originally in the Wuhan region and is now widespread in different parts of the world. We started seeing our first cases here in the United States were in Washington, and then in January 26th, we saw our first case here in Arizona. To give you some perspective, we currently, as of this morning, you notice I don't have a PowerPoint, it's because it's a rapidly evolving issue and things change rapidly, but as of this morning, we had 5 confirmed cases in Arizona. Right now, worldwide, we have 164, or I mean, in the United States, we have it circulating, and state labs are testing to identify. So people are seeing the case numbers go up, and the reason we're seeing that is because we're increasing the testing. So it's important to emphasize that increased testing doesn't necessarily mean an increase in sick people. It just means an increase in identification of these cases, which is important because it helps us identify and mitigate the risk. So coronavirus is a virus that, again, is spread. It's spread through droplets via respiratory droplets that are produced when an infected person coughs or sneezes. We're recommending social distancing because what you want to know is that when it's droplets, it's anything within 6 feet. So we want to keep you, if obviously that's why we're telling people if you're sick, stay home.
6 feet?
Social distancing. That's an infected person. So that's what we're telling you. That's what we're telling people. When people are diagnosed, everybody needs to spread out.
Yeah, I need to spread these guys out before we continue with this. I don't have enough 6 feet, but.
Okay, well, if somebody's coughing or sneezing, try to stay at least 6 feet. Hopefully people are heeding the warning. This is one of those instances where it's really going to come down to personal responsibility and being informed. If you're sick, we want you to stay home. And that's going to make a huge difference. And I'll go into that. But normally when somebody is diagnosed, the symptoms are fever, cough, difficulty breathing. And these can come on anywhere between 2 to 14 days after exposure. It's important to note that just because you've been exposed, or even if you are infected, you may not show symptoms. And it's possible to spread the disease without any symptoms. So, and not everybody that is infected gets, very sick or may not even show symptoms. So again, that's why it's important if you are sick to stay home. So who's at risk? And basically it's the general population, but the people that have a chronic condition, it's the usual people that we see during flu season. If you have an immunocompromised system, if you have a chronic health condition, the elderly are more at risk than the general population. However, this virus has the possibility to infect anybody. To protect yourselves, we tell people to wash your hands, first of all, and avoid touching your face, which is something that is very hard to do.
Yeah, for me.
And so we tell people to wash your hands for about 20 seconds, which is what it takes to sing the happy birthday song twice. Shout out, I was at an event, a public event this weekend, and there was a mom with a toddler, and I just heard her say, remember, we have to sing happy birthday twice. And I wanted to high five her, but we're doing social distancing, and it probably introducing yourself as the health director in a public, restroom is probably not the best way to approach somebody. But it means people are listening, and it's good. That's what we want. If you can't, go ahead.
No, the question, I mean, I know we're in flu season already.
Right.
So, having somebody cough or something may not be necessarily a sign. How can you tell? Is there a difference?
So the symptoms are very similar. What we're doing to distinguish whether you are at risk for increased testing is if you've been exposed to somebody that has either tested positive for the disease or has come back. They have traveled to one of the areas where there's widespread. And so you're looking at like China, you're looking at Italy, you're looking at some of those places in the United States, you're looking at, for example, where there's community spread like Washington, Seattle, those areas. But yes, flu-like symptoms would be very, very similar. And because it's flu season, it's not too late to get your flu shot. It's not going to protect you against this, but it will help, provide some protection against the flu. And again, if you catch the flu, you're going to become, you're going to develop some sort of, your system's going to be compromised, which puts you at risk for other things among that. So, right now what we're doing is we're working just to give you an idea of plans. We practice for this all the time. It is flu season, but we practice for outbreaks. We practice for pandemics. We have a program that's specifically devoted to that, just to give you an idea of proactive steps. I'm very encouraged by the fact that a lot of, organizations and people putting on events have reached out to us proactively and said, for the record, we haven't had a confirmed case in Yuma County. And at this time, we don't have any evidence, just like we don't have a confirmed case of community spread. But these event organizers and these institutions, are concerned, and they want to reassure the public. And so what they've been doing is they've been reaching out proactively for guidance. What can we do to make sure that people feel confident coming to these events, or that people feel like we're doing what we need to do to make sure, we help protect their health and wellness. And so that's very encouraging. We've seen that from schools. We've seen that from event organizers. We have elections coming up, and the recorder and elections office, we met with them, last week. And again, over an abundance of precaution. Everybody's taking steps to just, sanitize a little more regularly, to just make sure they have signs informing the public of what they can do. So very similar to what we would do during regular flu season. But people are just taking that extra precaution, maybe wiping down surfaces more often. So we've done some preventing educational awareness. Like I said, we've had one-on-one meetings with different organizations. And, for example, the school, back in January, a shout out to, Arizona Western College. They were planning just in case we were seeing measles outbreaks last year. And so they wanted to prepare for that. So they put on this event. We worked really closely with them, and Dr. Elliott Nelson invited different representatives from the different school districts in Yuma County, but she also invited representatives from across the border. And so we had a very good tabletop exercise discussion. There were questions, that were raised, and going through those exercises allows us to come up with things that maybe we hadn't considered before. It makes us better. And so there was very good dialogue. And the very, very next day was the day that it was announced that we had our first case in Arizona, which happened to be a university student. So that's the value of being prepared. People ask, are people overreacting, or people, not taking it seriously? And the truth of the matter is, it's important to recognize that it's new and people are scared and they want to know how to protect their families. And so the key here, and what I can't emphasize enough, is that it's important to have information, be informed. That's the best thing you can do. Our media partners, we reach out to them because they're key in promoting our message. And it's important for people to know that if it's not coming from a trusted source, if you're not hearing it from the CDC, you're not hearing it from the state health department, you're not hearing it from us, you probably should be cautious. we fielded calls and inquiries from people that read stuff in social media that was unfortunately not accurate. So again, having accurate information is the best way you can do, the best thing you can do to protect yourself and your family. So again, let me go back and give you some perspective. So right now, we have 164 confirmed presumptive cases of the virus in the United States. 11 of those have resulted in deaths. 19 states have reported cases. To put that into perspective, to go back to your flu and not to minimize the situation, we've had 32 million flu confirmed cases in the United States, and unfortunately around 18,000 of those have resulted in death. So we're taking precautions that we would normally take, just a little bit more heightened, because again, it's new. So what we're telling people again is wash your hands for 20 seconds, sing the happy birthday song like the mom did with her child, very, very important. If you cannot get to a bathroom or you don't have one readily available, you can use hand sanitizer. It has to be alcohol based, and it has to be above 70% or 60% alcohol content. And again, if you're going to do that, you need to cover your entire surface. A lot of people, that's why we promote washing your hands, because people are more vigorous washing their hands. A lot of times people put hand sanitizer and they're like, that's it. So please use it appropriately. Avoid close contact with people that are sick. If you are sick, please stay home. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue and immediately throw it away. And disinfect frequent touch surfaces as needed, so frequently. So what we're looking at is, again, if you're touching, regular surfaces, we don't know necessarily that you need to do it more often than not, but again, a good wipe down with a good disinfectant should do it, or a diluted bleach solution. And if you've traveled to one of the areas where there's wide community spread, and within 14 days of returning, you come down with the symptoms that I described before, which was the cough, the shortness of breath, the fever, then call your healthcare provider, and they will give you some guidance. If you think you've been exposed, or we're telling people, please call your healthcare provider first. Don't just show up. They're going to give you guidance. We are working very, very closely with our clinical partners. We field calls from the hospital, from urgent care, from regular physicians. We have daily calls with the different partners, healthcare partners. We're getting CDC updates on a regular basis, probably 3 times a week at least. We're working binationally. We are a border state, so that's come up. We are having frequent dialogue with our partners across the border. We have excellent communication with the state health department. They are doing an incredible job of making sure they coordinate calls, that we have the same information, that we're having an opportunity to ask questions, because the goal is to make sure we're able to respond in our community. But as different counties, it's our job to make sure we maintain the infrastructure across the state. So Dr. Christ and her team at ADHS were here during H1N1, and my team and I were here during H1N1 as well. So we've gone through this before. And so again, it's important to have information and be prepared. And so again, taking those simple precautions goes a long way. Is there any specific questions you want to?
Sure.
Diana, are the test kits available here in Yuma County, and then how long are they taking to get the results back?
So what we're doing right now is the testing is happening at the state health department. They have the ability to process up to 450 specimens a day. What the state is working on is they're working with commercial labs, so tests will become more readily available. Right now, the turnaround time is within 24 hours. So what would happen if you were ill, let's say, it was a suspect case, we would work with the healthcare provider. We would go through a series of screening questions to determine the criteria. If that was the case, it would be forwarded to the state lab. They would process it, and we would know within 24 hours.
Let me give you a more specific question.
Okay.
We were in Washington last week at Representative Gozar's office. obviously we shook his hand. He was very friendly too.
I didn't.
Oh, that's right. He didn't. I did. I knew there was something going on. But anyway, I mean, those are the type of interactions that kind of brings the question up. I mean, how long can you be, I mean, if you're concerned, if you're saying, okay, well, the gentleman already, he's quarantined himself.
Mhm.
So how do you handle that?
So we're looking at the symptom onset would be anywhere between 2 to 14 days, and we're we're looking at that exposure. It would be very similar than the infection rate would be very similar than regular flu. I was in DC the week before that too, shaking hands with people, and so again, that's why we ask you to, wash your hands, and so if people think they've been exposed, then we say, maybe self, isolate. But right now the risk would be very similar to what you would do during regular flu season. And normally we don't, you come in contact with somebody who has the flu, and we don't isolate right away, or we don't, you know.
Is there something we can do as a county to, sort of a preventive measure? I've seen a lot of those dispensers with antibacterial in different places. Is there some way that we can start, offering that kind of
With the hand
service?
sanitizers. So again, for the public areas and places where there's high traffic, we're telling people just wipe down surfaces maybe a little more often than you normally would. It's good to have hand sanitizer. We prefer people wash their hands. The hand sanitizer is convenient when you can't go to, when you can't be at a bathroom and wash your hands. So it's not a bad idea to have that. And again, just having that awareness that the touching your face is huge.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, look, I mean, I understand that people are being asked to wash, but people are rushing through.
Right.
I'm saying, look, is there a way that we can start providing that at county facilities? I mean, as a public service.
So I've talked to a lot of the agency heads, and like I said, we met with elections, and most of them already have that. They've been doing that. Most of the organizations are very proactive about doing that, and they have been. So we've gotten lots of calls, and again, over an abundance of caution, people normally do that during flu season, but I've seen those, to your point, I've seen those sanitizers out more prominently in a lot of, and I've seen them in county buildings. So, and we just want to encourage, people to have that available. So,
Well, I would
but we
do that. I would send a memo out saying if they're available, because with the panic,
Right.
it's just difficult to find anything anymore. Any sanitizer or antibacterial hand wash. If you go to the stores, I mean, that's what you see. You see empty
Right.
shelves now because people have gone out, panic buying everything. I mean, it's just.
Right. And we're updating again for communication. We're updating our website. People can go on there. People can call us. Our communication, the county's communication office has done a really good job of updating people via social media, Facebook. We have dispersed some hand sanitizers. We've had inquiries from places where it was important that they have them, and they didn't. But for the most part, a lot of people, as part of their preparedness plans, particularly here in the county, have done that. I've met with other elected officials, and they have done the same thing as well with other municipalities. They're just being proactive. They put out the hand sanitizer. First responders, we want to make sure that they're taken care of. I've had a couple of meetings with fire and paramedics and EMS, and so they're taking those precautions. They're aware, and so again, that work has started quite a while ago, and that's the best thing you can do. The best thing you can do is always plan ahead and be prepared. And so again, over an abundance of caution, because we don't know, the situation evolves, and so it may not be a matter of will we get a case. It may be when we get a case, and when that happens, we're gonna again highlight the same precautions, and we're gonna follow the same protocol, and we're gonna increase testing. So it's gonna be an issue of, again, be informed, be prepared. You wash your hands, use the hand sanitizer, and keep informed. And
One
it's
more.
okay to ask questions.
Yeah, one question.
Yes.
Because this is a new virus, are you, is it an assumption that people should make that it will go down as the temperature heats up, or do we know yet whether that's going to be the case? Is it like most flus, or is it?
So this is a novel coronavirus, but there are other coronaviruses. We saw SARS and we saw MERS, and we saw those go in cyclical patterns just like the flu. So it's been said that there's a chance that when it, like to your point, that when it warms up, that's typically when regular flu kind of tapers down as well. Flu season can start in September, October, typically peaks in January, February, when we saw the increase in these cases, and usually tapers down around April, but it could go all the way through May. So we're hoping that that's the case. More likely than not, though, it's these increased mitigation strategies that we're doing. You know, people being hyper aware of the social isolation, of the precautions they need to take. So a combination of those two things hopefully will, taper down the number of cases again, or of infections, not necessarily the cases because we're testing. It's also important to note that there's currently not a vaccine. They're working on that. And so right now, again, not everybody that contracts the disease becomes ill. And not everybody that contracts the disease that becomes ill has serious symptoms, but it could be very serious to people that have underlying conditions. So it's very similar to flu, but yeah, we're hoping a combination of the increased public awareness, the mitigation strategies, and hopefully the natural trend of flu and coronaviruses included help bring that down.
Well, is there a number people can call for information?
So they can call the health department. So it's 928-317-4550. They can visit the yumacountyaz.gov website. There is a banner. You click on it. It takes you to the health department page. Actually, any site that you visit on that banner will lead you to that. And it'll give you information to the CDC, to the Arizona Department of Health Services. We're updating the information daily as it becomes available. Again, welcome to call the office or visit the website.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I hired a local agency because my husband had a stroke, and they come to our home to give him a bath and dress him, and they sent 2 people.
No,
that are
I
sick.
can't. I mean, if you are going to ask a question, we can hear you, but on TV, you won't be seen. Is it okay? Is that okay?
I'm asking her. Yeah. So I really don't care if it's on TV or not. But they sent 2
No,
people.
we do though. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if you're gonna ask a question, normally we ask people to come to the podium. And I'm just telling you that we're gonna do this to let the audience know that that it's coming from someone in the public.
Yes.
Yes.
Fine. We hired a local agency because my husband had a stroke, and they've sent 2 people now that are sick. They're coughing and sneezing and so forth. So I went to their office and told them this, and they said that their workers are supposed to report to them if they're sick or not. Well, how am I supposed to know that by the time they're in my house sneezing and coughing? You know what I'm saying? So you need to get on these local agencies about sending out sick people to people's homes who are sick, because they visit my house, then they go to another house and another house and another house. Mm-hmm. So y'all need to get on that.
So to the point, that's why we're telling people to stay home if they're sick. One of the things that we've done is we've actually, the Arizona State Health Department set out a series of webinars, again, highlighting the importance of that for healthcare facilities, for healthcare workers. We're telling all employers that if your employees are sick, they should stay home. We have no way of knowing if that's happening or not, but that has been the guidance. That's been the guidance that we've emphasized. We've told some employers you might need to, especially if there's, depending on your policies, it's important at this time that if the employee did not take the initiative to stay home when they're sick, and you as the employer realize that that's the case, that you need to let them go home. So I will step out right after my presentation, and if you want to follow up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? I mean, sorry, from the board?
Well, yeah, one more.
Okay.
I've been wanting to ask. So when you were telling us the numbers of total flu cases and deaths of both types,
right?
I was trying to do the mental math real quick. It almost seems like the regular flu is just as dangerous. I mean,
Yes.
percentage-wise.
Yeah. We see, the flu. Unfortunately, the rate of flu. People die of the flu. every year. Like I said, the number was really high. We've had about 18,000.
Yeah.
And so again, it's one of those things where the precautions are the same because it's a respiratory virus. And so we tell people this all the time, you know, with the flu. And so again, we have a novel virus. It's different, it's new. People are uncertain. And so it's of concern. But yes, regular flu season. And again, it evolves. But normally the precautions that we're talking about should be the precautions that should be taken during flu season. So yes, to your point, that's correct.
That's about the same.
But is the mortality rate the same?
The mortality
That's what I
rate
was
for this
talking about.
particular virus so far has not been the same as the flu.
It's higher,
The flu
much higher.
mortality rate has, and infection rate is significantly higher.
So that's what the problem is.
The flu,
The
yes,
flu is higher.
compared to coronavirus, yes. So the mortality rate and the infection rate of regular flu, what we see every year, is higher.
Well,
That's what I
obviously,
thought when you gave those numbers.
I don't think I follow that, because when I was talking about a mortality rate, I was talking about the percentage of people who can die from this sickness, and you're talking about the number of people dying.
Oh, okay. So
That's
so
a different thing.
the mortality rate for coronavirus is significantly lower. I think we're looking at 2% maybe right now. And again, it evolves as it changes as we get more information. But yes, the mortality rate from regular flu is much higher than the mortality rate that we know of for coronavirus so far.
Right.
That's what I thought I got from the
All right.
numbers.
So far.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that was informative to the general public. The next item in the agenda is the consent calendar. Now, the consent calendar has items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. There are items 1 through, I think it was 12. Items 1 through 12. Is there any items that anybody wants pulled out? I want one, number 8. Anybody else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items in the consent agenda, items 1 through 12, with the exception of item number 8.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Then motion and second to approve items 1 through 12, with the exception of item number 8. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, Human Resources. Approve the Plan 2020-2021 medical premium rates effective July 1, 2020, with 0 overall increase, no plan changes, and 1.5 dependent contribution shift. Shortfall from the trust reserve. The shortfall is to come from the trust reserves, 233,765. Before you begin your presentation, I just want to thank both the staff and the members of the Benefit Trust Committee for addressing most of the issues that we talked about, especially the direction given by the board and what we'd like to have recommended. I mean, I know this is sort of anticlimactic when you put it in the consent calendar because you don't get a chance to gloat about the fact that there is no increases. There are no increases. Only on the increase that there is was something that we had planned for a long time to do. But as I read the article in the newspaper about the city of Yuma attrition rate, and I read that it's one of the biggest problems they have is the fact that they pay dependent coverage probably at a higher rate than we do, because there were actually some complaints about that. It just brings back the fact that you guys have been keeping the lid on those increases for a long time, and this year especially, it shows. You can start now.
Yes, good morning, Chair, as members of the board. Is there a specific question that you would like me to answer on the question that you pulled on the item?
I don't know. I pulled it because I wanted to say that. So I said it already. So I don't know. Does anybody else want to say something? I mean, think about this: 0 increase this year when everybody's health insurance rates are technically going up by 5, by 10, by 12, by it's not really common. And I just wanted to highlight that. Sometimes, like I say, we let a lot of this stuff go through. We tend to like it when it works out. And when it doesn't work out, we tend to just, get really intensive on it. But this time it's worked out a little bit. It's worked out better. And we don't need the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, yeah, I didn't make one, but actually there is one, but I don't have to present on that. I don't have any other information other than what you've already shared. We've shared the information to our employee health committee, the feedback that we received back. The majority did like the option where there wasn't an increase. They do understand that dependent shift is common from the request that we had a couple years ago. So they expect that change. The increase that the trust was able to absorb was the request that we received from most of our members. I don't have anything else unless, again, if you have a specific question you would like me to direct to.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept consent number 8 as presented.
I'll second it.
The motion is second to accept item number 8 as presented. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Now we move on to the discussion and action items. And the first thing in here, it is that the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first item is Development Services and Planning and Zoning Division is requests for modifications of subdivision regulations for the proposed Fortuna Palms Plaza Commercial Condominiums subdivision. C&W Investments LLC requests 6 modifications from the Yuma County subdivision regulations for the proposed Fortuna Palms Plaza Commercial Condominium subdivision consisting of 8 lots on a 1.76 acre subdivision parcel number 700-45-243 zone general commercial C2 located at 11375 South Fortuna Road, Yuma County, Yuma, Arizona. It doesn't require a public hearing, but staff will give a dreaded PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas, Senior Planning, presenting the request for 6 modifications from subdivision regulations and public works standards for the proposed Fortuna Palm Plaza Condominium subdivision. The existing building is being used as multi-tenant building, and as stated, it's located at 11375 South Fortuna Road. Modification number 1 from section 4.15E residential roads. It is requested by the developer not to install roll or vertical curves on sidewalks on 34 Place and Phoenix Drive. The engineering department recommends approval of this request since there are no existing sidewalks throughout the development of the area. The next slide shows the area where curves and sidewalks will not be constructed. Modification number 2, section 1.51D, residential collector type street, is requested by the developer not to improve a quarter section road, 34th Street along the northern subdivision line. The engineering department recommends approval of this request since there's no dedication of road improvements along the alignment. The next vicinity map shows the location of the alignment, and we have no right-of-way dedication on the east side as shown on the next slide. Modification number 3 from section 4.13 right-of-way and easements. It is requested by the developer not to provide right-of-way for internal roads and streets. The engineering division department recommends approval of this request since the private streets are already constructed. The next slide shows existing private roads on the development. Modification number 4 from section 4.22B sidewalks. It is requested by the developer not to provide sidewalks along the internal streets and perimeter roads. The engineering department recommends approval of this request since there are no existing sidewalks throughout the area and improvements are already constructed. The next slide shows the internal roads with no sidewalks. Modification number 5 from section 4.12C, intersections and corners. The developer is proposing not to provide at the street corners a minimum of 25 by 25 right-of-way chamfer at the intersection of the property lines, which is 34 Place and Phoenix Drive and 34 Place and the entrance to the subdivision. The engineering department recommends approval of this request only if the developer provides a 10 by 10 easement chamfer along the perimeter streets to ensure proper line of sight. The slide, next slide shows the location of those chamfers. Modification number 6, section 4.19, private streets. It is requested by the developer not to build the private roads in accordance with public works standards. The engineering department recommends approval of this request since the private streets are already constructed. The next slide shows the required public works standard for commercial roads, curb and gutter and paving. And this slide shows the location of the existing private roads. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the requested modifications, and staff is requesting the 10 by 10 chamfer easement along for modification number 5. And that includes the staff presentation. Any
So
questions?
this is not a public hearing, so, do you guys have any questions? I have a comment. So you're saying staff recommends approval of, there's 6 modifications. You recommend approval of 5 of them, but the one that you have a problem with is the Schaefer, which is the
Corner cutout.
dedication of a corner space for people to sort of get off the road and make that
Yes,
corner.
Chairman.
Right. Is that what you?
Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of all the modifications.
We saw that.
And the staff is recommending approval of all the modifications with the exception of number 5. We're requesting a 10 by 10 chamfer on modification number 5.
So it's a 10,
normally 25 by 25.
which is normally 25 by
25 by 25 is the standard.
Okay, all right. Any questions from the board before I call the
And
representative or the developer?
I have a question.
Sure.
Then why are we requesting extra if 25 is normal?
No, it's actually
No,
less.
extra, it's less.
25 feet, 15 feet less.
Oh, 10 is, and we're asking 20. Oh, got
No,
it. Okay.
we're
We're
asking
asking
for 10 instead of
Staff is.
25.
It's normally 25 by 25.
We just
Oh,
asking
okay,
for,
okay.
yeah, we're asking them to allow enough space for people to get off the road.
Okay, got
in
it.
the
Okay.
intersection. All right,
I think I had it
any other
backwards.
question? No other question? Is it developer or representative here?
Good morning, Barry Olson, 101 East 2nd Street. I'm here on behalf of the developer, T&W Investments. At the Planning and Zoning Commission, we had a long discussion about this particular project, and it's this chamfer issue, which we got well educated at the P&Z Commission. But and I think most of you know this, but just to make certain we're all on the same page, this is a project that's already constructed, and there were 3 phases to this. There's a Verizon store, there was a Chevron station, and in this center that was put into the back. All along, Mr. Wade, on behalf of T&W Investments, had told county staff, okay, here's basically what I'm doing. I'm going to get this built, but my plan is to basically separate it into separate units for a condominium. And his goal with it was basically for any type of business developer or owner to go out and you are in business and you've been associated with businesses. It's expensive to build like a standalone restaurant, a standalone title office. This is a consolidated commercial center that we have a number of small businesses that have populated it. It's been very successful. It's pretty much filled out. Bernardo's moved over there. Chicago Title's over there. ERA has an office over there. But the plan is basically to allow those small business owners to buy their individual units. And that's why we're condominiumizing it. There was no secrets about the project, and we frankly thought this would be pretty easy to get through. And so we developed and designed and developed the project after meeting with, staff had seen the project, knew everything was going on. So we were surprised when this chamfer requirement came up because it doesn't make any sense. The project's already there. In essence, if we did nothing, we wouldn't have to dedicate the chamfer. But we're essentially being somewhat penalized because now we want to condominiumize it. Nothing's going to change. The project's going to look exactly the same. It's just delineating these small spaces in the shopping center. Traffic's going to be the same.
Would you bring up the slide showing that chamfer?
Oh, we saw it. That looks weird. So what this would do is cut off that corner? Is that it?
Yes. We'd have to dedicate an easement to the county.
Oh.
And this is already developed and part of the association, the common areas for this project, who already have to maintain it. So if you have a small easement there, Why would the county want to take over maintenance of a small easement area? You already have enough difficulty with these easements around town, having staff go out and maintain them. This is already in the HOA. We're going to maintain it. And there's pictures of this where you'll see there is no public health and safety issue.
And the answer from staff is?
Yeah. I want to know
Because this was already approved, that's what.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it would have made sense at the beginning, but yeah, he's right behind you, giving us an answer why staff is, you know, and stay 6 feet away from him. There you go, that's plenty, that's good.
Engineering division. When everything changed when this was, the subdivisions were triggered by selling the lots. When the original project was approved, I believe it was a land division, and each parcel came in with a building permit. Oh. At the building permit stage, we wouldn't be able to ask for the chamfers. Now, once you say it's going to be a subdivision, it gets processed as a subdivision, which it triggers other requirements. Let's say, for instance, on 34th place, at a later time, if demands arises where people are saying, hey, there's no handicap ramps or there's no sidewalks, the county would have to buy right away from the owner to be able to provide those handicap ramps.
Can you actually require the developer to provide them?
Actually,
that's it?
The requirement is for him to put sidewalks. The requirement is to provide a 25 by 25 foot chamfers. I talked to the city of Yuma, and they also require 25 by 25 and larger chamfers at different locations depending on the road section. The requirement is 25 by 25.
Oh, okay, but the question that I asked was, okay, is there a need? Is there a sidewalk there already?
There's no sidewalks, but like I said, as we get, if people complain that there's no lack of sidewalks, and then where the county says, well, okay, the county will provide sidewalks, then the county would have to buy that right away from the owner to accomplish the handicap ramps.
But aren't the buildings handicapped accessible already by code?
I'm talking about the one on 34th place on the perimeter roads. Because the internal is going to be, it's being proposed to be in private.
Let me ask the question again. So there are no sidewalks, so there's no way to require for them to be handicapped.
There's a requirement, but staff would review the request and say, okay, right now there's no existing sidewalks, so therefore it's not a requirement. But as a future date or years from now, people are saying, you know what, we need sidewalks. And we have got many calls from them requesting sidewalks or ramps at certain locations in the foothills area.
Yeah. You know, this was a new project. I think there was no way to get around it, but this is a modification. I find that I've been involved in a couple of those, and it really feels like you're trying to adjust a prior project to the new requirements, which makes it very difficult for the prior project to be able to do because of the way they designed their layout. So anyway, I don't know the rest of the board here, how the rest of the board feels. I feel they're trying to do something to make sure that they can accomplish what they set out to do, but making some of these requirements in a situation, and if I see this correctly, I mean, there are no sidewalks. So
currently, there's no sidewalks. Yeah, that's correct.
And I know we get complaints about the lack of sidewalks, especially in the foothills. But this is a project that's already been there for years. I'm not sure that this is a tool that I like to use to bring sidewalks to the area down there. And I do understand the argument that, look, if we ever want to bring sidewalks to that area there and handicap access points, we do need to have that right away, which is the answer to the question is, why does the county want to have some useless, quote, right away right now? I mean, and it's because in the future, we may want to do some adjustments, some improvements in there, and we would have to then purchase it right away from the landowner from the corner landowner. Well, I don't know. This is one of those.
Well, this building is a little over a year old. My question is, why didn't we require this when they built it? Why all of a sudden is it what triggered?
Because it wasn't a subdivision.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still nothing changes as far as the footprint.
No, we understand. I think that's what the issue is here. Yeah. Is why we're asking them to. And again, I don't think we're asking for the subdivider to put the improvements in. We're asking for them to sort of see the right of way necessary to do so in the future if we at the county level decided to do it. So let me ask the developer let me ask the representative of the developer, is there a particular problem with the dedication? Does it impact the sale or or the changeover to a condominium type commercial?
It creates a problem in the fact that then you have this easement running across the common areas. And that's a common area out there when it was developed. I'd also like to point out the Shea Station that was approved by the county, you can see it in the picture there. There's no chamfer on the other, on the sidewalk across the street. So it doesn't make any sense to require a chamfer on one side of the street, but not on the other one where you already built the Shea Station. And so there's no sidewalk over there. You'll see that that street has never had a sidewalk on it. And another point I want to make is we had this discussion on the project across the street that Mr. Waite's also involved. We had some modifications to the subdivision regulations there. And the board picked up at the time, the subdivision regulations probably work well for residential subdivisions, but they do not work as well and are problematic when you get into a commercial project because they're two different projects. But we have one set of subdivision regulations that governs commercial projects and residential projects. And so that's part of the problem we're running into here is we're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. We're on a commercial project, modifications are warranted, especially when you have a project that was well planned, the county approved it, and nothing came up until we got to this point and saying, oh, now you got to put these chamfers in.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Supervisor McLeod.
If you were to dedicate that, what happens? I mean, do you have to tear something out? Do you have to, or could it be just dedicated and sit the way that it is for the next 10 years?
If we had to dedicate it, the county would then be responsible for it. But we've got an HOA or an association, a commercial association that's supposed to maintain it. So then how do they maintain something when the county has an easement over it? Doesn't make any sense.
In other words, the maintenance they're giving it right now will stop because it's now the county's responsibility.
Chairman, just a clarification, the engineering division is requesting an easement. It's not a dedication. They still gonna own the easement. They're gonna maintain the easement. We just wanna make sure that we have a line of sight that is for safety. That's it.
Oh, I see. I was confused a little bit, which is not unusual, especially given the presentation this morning. The fact is that you're not asking for the right of way to dedication. You're asking for an easement, which is just able to control the land under there.
Later on.
I know.
You can see our frustration. We've already built this, and so what are we going to put out there? That's the point. If we have to do anything out there, if we put, like, let's say a sign, we have to get an electrical permit. The county can say it's too close. They could deny it for that reason. So that's my point, is we've already built this, and to then come back and say, oh, I mean, it just defies common sense to make us do this now and to require an easement. It's just not practical for the owner. It creates.
Does that seem unusual for government?
I'm not going to comment.
Yeah, you better step back a little.
Yeah.
Can I hear from Maggie, please?
She's back there.
She's waiting.
You need to raise your hand in this particular situation, especially if you have to,
I thought
I find
standing would.
the social distance was good, but I didn't see you back there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. So, just to clarify some points, this project was originally built as a commercial development. As soon as the developer chose to subdivide this and create a condominium subdivision, that triggered compliance with the subdivision regulations. That triggers improvements, some of the improvements that are being requested to be modified today. That is why they were required to request modifications of the subdivision regulations. Had the lot where the Shell station is located been included in the subdivision, they would have also needed improvements on that lot, as well as the lot for the Verizon property or the Verizon lot. So the subdivision regs are what trigger the improvements
requirements.
that are being requested to be modified. Had they kept this as a commercial development, these improvements would not be required.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
That
It's just-
what I'm trying
The
to clarify is
usefulness,
that the
yeah, no, no,
subdivision changes
no.
everything.
Yeah, I know.
The
we
fact
get
that
We get
that
that.
they're selling those lots and making it a commercial subdivision,
The opposite.
condominium subdivision,
Correct.
puts it under the subdivision rules.
Yes.
Yeah. And we get, I get it. I get it. I get it that if anytime you try to do a modification on something that's already there, you are almost always going to trigger the new rules or the change in rules, which will almost always trigger some new requirement from government that, applies. So that's why you have to ask to come through this process. So we're down to just whether there would be a need for an easement. And I was actually thinking of a right of way. I was actually thinking of turning lanes, and this is not the case. It's just an easement. It's just what's under there. And the question to the developer was, does it mean anything to your sales? That was the question to me. Would it change your sales scheme? Which is, would you have to take out that portion because it's an easement? I don't think so. I think, it's ground. It's just an access point for whatever you need to do there. Now, the other question here that comes to play is whether we really want to have that kind of control over this particular area, because it makes it the county's responsibility to do anything in there. So it's not a clear-cut situation here. I understand the fact, because it is a fact, that as time goes by, people are going to want sidewalks. I mean, they may not want them now because it's out in the open over there, but as it develops into a more urban area, people start expecting more things, we will get the request at the county. Why didn't you ask for sidewalks? Why didn't you ask for this at the time that you were doing this? I think the horse is out of the barn already here. We're not going to make that many changes. This is not a new development. This is not a new, it doesn't give us a chance to go back and, well, it might, but I think we're going to leave it at that. We're down to a 10 or 25 or no easement. And what we need to wait here is whether we want the responsibility or do we leave it there, because there's basically a homeowner association that will take care of whatever happens in that area.
I have a question. Eventually, this will be annexed into the city. Is the city going to require those things when it comes?
You
No, I don't think so.
They can't go back.
They can't?
No.
They can't go back and do that. It'll be grandfather in, which is, an expression
So if
I
the
hardly ever
easement
use.
Mr. Chair, Maggie, so if the easement's already there, if it's annexed into the city and the easement's already there, then they'll be able to put ramps in, and because the easement's already in.
There's not any ramps. Isn't there ramps?
No, the problem with this is that there is no
there's no
sidewalks to
ramp.
put a ramp
Oh,
on.
it's a sidewalk along the entire front of the building.
That or you go in that breezeway in between. So, but yeah, there's no anything through there.
There's no sidewalks. As a matter of fact, that was part of the modification.
Well, it's all a sidewalk in front of the businesses.
Well, that's in front of the businesses,
Yeah.
yes. All right, we're down to 10-foot easements or not. That's the bottom line. I mean, the rest of the modification has been basically recommended for approval, so I leave it to the board.
Let me take a stab at it, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we accept the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Which is no
modifications, no extensions.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and second to approve the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which probably discussed this a little longer than we have. Any other comments or questions? Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. All right, that takes care of the first item. We go to facilities management. An update by Luke Alm of Solon Corporation. Regarding a potential solar covered parking project for various county facilities, including details for leasing the equipment versus entering into a solar services agreement, SSA. Powerful presentation.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and Supervisors. Dave Hillen, Director of Facilities Management. Here with an update this morning, brief update, and then I'll introduce Luke Alm. Back in November, we heard a presentation from Luke with Solon Corporation, in which he presented a potential solar program for Yuma County, which encompassed 10 or 11 possible sites. And we looked at the alternatives between purchasing these solar structures versus leasing. As a result of that discussion, we were directed to conduct further research into those financing options, which we did. And we were back today to look more closely at two different types of lease options. One is a straight lease, the other is called a solar services agreement. And Luke will go over the details of each of those and how they would potentially work with the sites that we're looking at. We've also reduced the number of potential sites from 10 down to 5. Those 5 sites being the ones that we feel would be the most, would generate the most savings, either from the beginning or early on in the program. So with that, I'll turn it over to Luke Alm and let him walk us through the dreaded PowerPoint presentation.
And you're responsible for this one, Luke.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. Glad to be back here and excited to present the new options that we've worked on. As David mentioned, based on the last discussion that we had at the last board meeting, we went back and looked at, okay, what's the way we can maximize savings while minimizing risk to the county? So with that in mind, we are bringing forth 2 options for the board. One is an SSA, which stands for Solar Services Agreement. This is a very unique special program that only municipalities and nonprofits qualify. The other is a traditional lease savings program that's also an option. So just at a high level, a little bit of the differences between an SSA or Solar Services Agreement and a lease. In a Solar Services Agreement, this special program that is mainly meant for municipalities, the ACC, Arizona Corporation Commission, approved this program to be used to reduce risk to municipalities and school districts and other nonprofits that can like to take advantage of it. It's a very common program that school districts throughout the state and many other municipalities, including City of Yuma, Yuma County, Pima County, and many others have taken advantage of. In this program, the county basically gives permission to the solar company to come and provide solar shade structures, similar to the layouts you guys have seen and similar to this picture here. What in return, the solar services provider offers the county a price per kilowatt hour of solar electricity at a discounted rate. So there's no risk in that if the solar system doesn't produce, there's no fixed fees, no fixed payments, nothing of that sort of nature. So the county is only paying per kilowatt hour at a discounted rate from what the county is currently purchasing power. In a traditional lease structure, the solar's estimated production is taken. Based off that estimated production, a fixed monthly payment is put in place. So just to make things simple, let's say the solar system is estimated to produce 100 kilowatt hours. That rate is taken, divided up into a fixed monthly payment. So now a solar services agreement and a lease, they both come with production guarantees. So if the production guarantee is not hit, the solar company will then make up the lost savings to the county under that obligation. But in a solar services agreement, it's very specific. So if the solar system produces 100 kilowatt hours, the county would purchase 100 kilowatt hours at a discounted rate. If the solar system only produces 80 kilowatt hours, the county is only going to be producing 80 kilowatt hours. If it produces less than the production guarantee, then again, the solar company is going to be making up those lost savings to the county. The other difference in why a municipality may choose
Are you going through the slides yet?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. All right.
They're coming. The only other difference really between an SSA and a lease is that a lease avoids sales tax. So there's a little bit of an increased savings potential in a lease type setting, whereas an SSA really works with municipalities to reduce risk and maximize the benefits there in this special program that only municipalities qualify for. So with that in mind, we took the 5 sites with the highest savings. Now there's still potential to do the other sites at a future time, and we're looking into those other sites. These are the sites that will give you your best bang for your buck and produce the highest savings. Main Library, Development Services, Foothills Library, Adult Probation, and Public Works. Now you can see down at close to the bottom there, the total savings of $385,000, for example, on the Main Library. Now, at our last board meeting, we discussed the option of ownership also. In this type of structure, after 7 years, the county still has the option to purchase the systems. This is a very unique type of arrangement that municipalities can qualify for, because what it allows the solar company to do is we monetize all the tax credits, tax incentives, and we pass those savings on to the municipality in the form of cheaper electricity rates. However, after those tax incentives have been monetized, you guys still have the option to purchase the system. And in this example, you'll see in the bottom green line, total savings with optional year 7 purchase. So in 7 years, if there was any questions or doubts about any of the solar systems, after 7 years, you're definitely going to know how well they're working, right? The solar panels come with 25-year warranties alone. They're fixed. There's no moving parts. These are all canopy structures. No weird parts, no proprietary builds, nothing of that nature that would make these systems out of the ordinary. So in year 7, you guys would still be able to purchase the systems if you'd like, and increase the savings even further. That's usually recommended just because it is going to increase savings. However, it's not obligated. You can say, oh great, we want to purchase them in year 7, we want to purchase them in year 8, 10, 15, or never. So you can budget for it. Or just decide whether that's an option or not the county would like to participate in. So this is these are your SSA savings. Municipalities often choose this rate just because it comes with a much lower risk. You can see in the slide here how the bar graph there at the bottom is your green. That's your solar bill, and you can see that's basically locked in, right? So for the next 25 years. Finance is going to know exactly how much they're going to be paying for that portion of electricity with no increases. The red portion is how much your utility bill will be after the solar. And depending on how fast rates go up, somewhere between 0% and 10%, it depends on if there's a rate increase that year, right, will affect your savings.
Is this predicated on some sort of a rate increase?
So in this example, we assume a 2.5% rate increase. A lot of people like
year
to
over
assume,
year?
Year over year. A lot of people like to assume 3% for average inflation. Sometimes it's lower than that. Sometimes it's higher than that. It really depends on what's going on. APS is going through a current rate increase rate case right now, in which rates will shortly be increasing again by some factor.
So it looks like there's a bump up each year, right, in what you pay the solar company?
Well, your solar bill here in the green is fixed. So that rate's going to stay.
That's what you pay the company.
But it's going up.
It's going up.
Goes,
little.
It goes up a little bit, yeah, just slightly, yes. And then the red portion is how much the utility rates go up, and you can see those go up at an assumed 2.5% per year. Yes.
That's a big assumption.
Yeah, I don't think. What's the historic? Historically, it's not that high.
So it depends on the time frame that you take into account. So if you take, for example, like the last 4 years or the last rate increases, it can be as high as 5% year over year. If you take in it, because the rate cases happen and it changes, so within a variable range, it depends on how far back you go. But typically, this is a pretty good assumption. Somewhere between 2.5% and 4% is typical rate increases.
Over the 25 years.
Yes.
So you're looking at a historical background of up to 25 years before.
I don't think it's that.
Keep in mind, let's say rates go up, in this model you can see, let's say they go up 2.5% for the next 5 years, and then they never increase ever again. You can still see that the county's still going to be saving money.
Okay.
And if you wanted to maximize savings,
yeah,
the optional year 7 purchase
what
would
is the
maximize
purchase
that.
price? I mean, I can't tell from that, but I mean, it says total savings. I understand that, and that's always been the case. As far as I'm concerned, if you're able to purchase the system, then you really would make savings. You invested though the money that you used on to purchase it. So I've always looked at that as a look. If you are able to buy them, then you really will see the savings almost immediately. and they will accumulate over time, but you have invested the money, you have paid. Is there a point there in your presentation where we get an idea what that's going to be, the total that's going to be for each one of these projects?
So it's
How
the
much it would
fair,
cost to purchase them?
yeah, the cost to purchase them. It's the fair market value. So the way the IRS writes the rules is in year 7, the systems are appraised and they can be purchased at the fair market value at that time. So in these numbers, we make an assumption. We know pretty close to what the IRS is going to value them at in year 7, and that's what these numbers are broken off, based off of. So we have in this presentation, all of those numbers have not been broken out, but these are the real numbers. You can see the total savings with optional year 7 purchase, and this was the way that we tried to minimize the risk for the county. In the last board session, we heard some concerns of, well, we don't know if the systems are going to work. Maybe they fall down. What if you don't build a good system? These types of options. So in this type of scenario, the county is able to do almost, let's say, a trial run, right? They can have the systems. They can see how they operate for 7 years. They can see that they're great quality. They can monitor the savings all online. And then in year 7, you can plan for and purchase the systems at that time, and like you said, maximize your savings at that time.
Well, the problem is not knowing what there will be valued 7 years from now. It could be less, it could be more, depending on the value of the panels. And I mean, leaving that for now, if it was a fixed amount, you know, you lease a car and you pay it for 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, they'll tell you, you know, you have this much to pay. You know, you can more or less follow that. This is probably more or less about the same thing. You lease them for 7 years, basically. And then at the end of the 7th year, you will see what the residual value is. But in this particular case, it won't be the residual value. It will be the fair market value. And you will have it appraised. You're not reducing. See, the way a lease works to me is that you, by making those payments, you reduce. It's like an option to buy. You know, lease with an option to buy. You have a lease with an option to buy. The problem is you don't know what you're going to pay at the end of that 7-year span, because it will be for fair market value, which is a risk that you guys will also take, because it could be that by that time the value will be lower than if you said it today,
Because technology.
because technology improves. But anyway, I'm not, and you got to go through a presentation, and every time we stop you, we stop you. But there's you know,
Well, I want to understand what I'm looking at. So the Foothills Library and adult probation don't even break even until after 12 years?
Correct.
Why would we install those?
Because the total term savings, there's a lot of term savings, and then you can see many people in the county are partial to the purchase to maximize savings, right? So in year 7, if you purchase the systems, those 2 systems alone, the savings would be over $1.1 million, $577,000 and $606,000 over the term savings.
Are we going to see a slide that shows the guesstimated purchase price
It
in year
is.
7?
Down there, 1,700,000.
No, that's not price. That's
Oh,
the
that's the
savings.
savings.
Estimated
Oh,
savings.
okay.
That's the 25-year savings if you buy them after 7
okay.
years. But I'd like to know what are we
What are the prices looking at?
looking at?
In the solar services agreements that we put together, the purchase price, or I should say a termination value for each system, is put into those agreements. That's if the county decides to terminate the agreements. We know that it's going to be at least that or lower. So there is a maximum cap in the agreements.
Will we see that today?
No, we did those. That is not included in this presentation, but we can definitely get you guys those numbers.
Oh, we will before we make the decision anyway. So, go ahead and finish your presentation. I'm sure that, we'll get to the question part. Go ahead.
So this is the solar services agreement option, right? This is where the county pays per kilowatt hour only with a production guarantee. The other option is a traditional lease option, right? So this is where the estimated production is taken, divided up, and there's a fixed monthly payment put in place. In this option, the savings are a little bit higher because there is no sales tax on this option. However, if the system production varies, 90 kilowatt hours versus 100 kilowatt hours, the county is going to be paying the same rate. Now, the panels come with 25-year warranties. The Solon has been building systems for a very long time now. Usually, the real production runs somewhere around 100 to 101% of estimated production.
What's the annual decrease in efficiency?
0.5%.
0.5% degradation?
Yes, correct.
So it'll produce 12% less over
Over 25 years.
25 years later.
Supposedly.
Yeah, plus or minus. Yeah, the system
I know
degrades
it's
at 0.5% each year.
subjective. And so what would Solon consider a defective panel? At what amount of degradation if one is going bad for some reason?
If it's producing less than 80 to 85% of the expected production, then we know something's wrong.
Is there some sort of a maintenance that comes with the lease? I mean, do you come and check them every so often? Because that's always a concern to me. I mean, sometimes the production is impacted by things like dust. You know, somebody needs to go there and clean them up, you know, bird droppings, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, which happens here a lot.
So in both the SSA and the lease option, Solon is responsible 100% for all of the maintenance, ongoing operations and maintenance, handling any of the warranties, any of the defective panels, all of those types of things Solon would be responsible for. As soon as the county purchases the system in year 7, basically the similar thing would continue, except for when you guys own the panels, then you would pay Solon separately for the ongoing operations and maintenance, or whatever company was selected at that time to continue the ongoing operations and maintenance.
Hopefully by then you would have trained county staff to take care of the maintenance.
Yes, that's definitely an option. We're happy to add that. We do that. We have training programs for some people. They like to take care of their own solar system, and that's a great option as well.
Right.
Now, besides the long-term savings, one of the biggest options and potential. Oh, sure.
Why?
So this is a lease option here, and you'll see the graph for the lease
Looks
option.
better than the other graph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said there's a little bit better savings.
It starts right away, which is something you don't see in the other one, the SSA.
Correct.
Okay.
So the lease has savings starting in year 1.
All right.
The biggest benefit to these systems is the shade, covered parking, and the value to the constituents here. So at the libraries, once you build things like that, you receive a lot of letters. Thank you so much for the shaded covered parking. It's great. Go out to your car, you put your hands on the steering wheel, and they're not sizzling, right? So these, I think you guys have seen these before. Quickly run through these. Main library. These are the 5 sites that are included. Again, there's still potential to do solar at the other sites. We're working on solutions for those still. Development services, Foothills Library, a couple of options there. Adult probation, a lot of covered parking there. Public Works, this is a unique system in that the solar panels are raised to approximately 14-foot clearance height. You can drive semi-trucks under there, large equipment. All of the very expensive equipment that the county owns can be put under here and shaded from the damaging effects of the sun.
Very expensive shades right there.
Yeah.
On top of that, all of the systems can be monitored online. Anywhere there's a web-based, the municipalities often like to put things like these monitor displays in town halls, maybe the public works facility, in the libraries. They'll put up a display, hey, here's how much our solar's producing, here's how much money it's saving. You can put things like weather on there, news, other things of that kind of nature. These are a lot of fun that are included for educational purposes and also a way to track the exact production and monitoring there.
You must come from a nerd school.
Yes.
This is great, probably.
I am the big nerd, that's
yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right. All these graphs are going to impress all these people, right?
These are the environmental attributes of a system of this size. Here in Arizona especially, the water is of great value. The other interesting things to look at are, say, like on the right-hand side there, you can say, hey, this is the system of this would be approximately 179 homes, energy use for 1 year. Down at the bottom, interesting, you can see it's worth 2,026 acres of U.S. forest.
You're just emphasizing your nerdiness right there.
You get excited about
yeah,
things
you get
like
excited
this.
about that.
Yeah.
The carbon footprint, it's good for global warming.
Yeah. things like that. That wraps up the summary of these items here for you guys. Any other questions?
Yeah.
I think we're going the same place, so I'll let him.
What I'd like to do, because I don't believe that APS rates go up 2.5% per year over time. It may be a 5% rate increase, but it's been 4 years since the last one. That's barely 1.25. Susan, can you contact APS and find out historically for the last 10, 15 years what their average all rate increases, what does it come out to over a yearly basis?
Yes, I can do that. In a verbal conversation that I've had with APS, I asked them about what it was, and they were telling me that over the last 20 years, about 2% average. But I will ask them to give me the data rather than just an anecdote.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
For the last, how many years did you want?
20 years is
20
fine.
years is fine.
7 years, 10 years would be okay. But I mean, let me tell you what sells me on this stuff. It's not so much the savings, because there is some savings and we're looking at savings, but it's the fact that as a county, and as a public entity, not only are you looking to save money on the utilities, but you're also looking at the environment. And I'm not a left-leaning kind of, liberal kind of progressive thing, but I can see the benefit not only on the public relations side, but on the side of just being on the right side of history. I mean, I don't really want to be the last county in Arizona to think that because we have so much sun that we can't take advantage of that. I mean, it may not be a 2%, 2.5%, 3% savings, but it's going to be a savings, and it's going to change the way people look at you just because you acknowledge the fact that, you're using a source of energy that, it's readily available. It's just a matter of making the numbers work. I'd say that to really get the most benefit, you have to make the spends up front. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing the numbers, what it is now, what it would be 7 years from now, approximately what it would be 7 years from now. There's nothing wrong with testing, a car for a while before you buy it. That's fine. But, I want to see those numbers and see if it makes sense economically, because I know it makes sense public relation-wise. And I know it makes sense in terms of the environment, and it makes sense in terms of the times we live in. That makes all kinds of sense to me. It makes sense in the shade area, which I see very little shade in some of those areas out there. So it makes sense in a lot of ways. It just needs to make sense in the numbers for me to really just commit to it. But I'm already halfway sold. So, the nerdiness pushing me over the edge a little bit. So
you're asking for.
I'm asking for the
purchase
numbers.
upfront,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I'm asking for what it would cost for the purchase up front, how much it's estimated to cost 7 years from now.
Yes.
And whether there's a good maintenance project training program that can help us deal with it if we had to, because it's like I said, it's different than buying a new car, because I think we need to take care of it if we buy it up front. So I want to know those numbers to see which options are really good. But I think it's something that I like to do. It's just that it needs to make sense economically, and it needs to make sense overall in terms of the benefit. Okay? Anything else?
No, sounds good.
Sure. I just want to add, whenever we make a decision, that we take in consideration the locations of the shade structures that are going to go where at.
Where are
So
they?
we're looking at other different options of buildings or
we just want to make sure that we can move them.
We just gotta make sure they're at one place, that they're not gonna need to be moved unless they pay for it. We'll put them wherever, but I don't think they're gonna want that. So I don't want the county to be on the hook for that.
There's another important factor we're taking into account here, and that is we're going through the budget process. If we're going to be paying for something, it needs to be on the budget. So we need this quickly. We are supposed to get our preliminary budget done by June the 1st or something like that. So that doesn't leave much time. So we need to get these things done, get an answer on this, and put it in the budget if we're going to do either, or whatever option we choose. Okay? So it needs to be done quickly. Get the other nerds to work on it quickly. What is it?
Just a point of clarification. We looked at the SSA and the lease because the prior board discussion in November was we do not want to own the system. It's too risky.
Maybe we don't
It
want
can
to
be
own it
very
at the
risky.
beginning.
So what you want to look at is, it sounds like you want to go back and look at owning it up
Well, I
front
just
with
want
an
to,
O&M.
because I don't know, I wasn't here during the last presentation, and I have to admit that. So what I want to take a look at is the options available to us, because as I said before, this is an investment no matter which way you look at it. So what we need to do is look at the investment that we're going to make and the return, whether it's a better investment and a better return over the long range. Like I said, if it was up to me now, I'd be leaning on the 7-year option. I just wanted to know what the 7-year price would be.
Yes.
Because I think that gives you plenty of time, and it gives you plenty of time for you guys to fix whatever goes wrong. And so it's a good option to me, but it would be more like a lease purchase option than it would be a long-term lease for a long time.
So we brought this to you because these are both, especially on the lease side, these are money up front and there's no ownership, and it's just savings from day one for these 5 facilities. And I thought that was probably the best, least risk, most benefit option. But what we'll do is bring back the lease, continuous lease with no purchase, lease with purchase after 7 years. What does that cost and what's the return
That's
on
right.
investment? And then if you want to purchase up front with an operation and maintenance agreement that we're paying someone else to maintain them, because I
Yeah.
would recommend we do that. It's less expensive to do that than to try to train our own people and hire people to do it, because it's going to be quite an investment. So I would say purchase up front with an O&M agreement, and what's the net cost of that?
Yeah, that's
And then what's the return on that investment? So we'll have 3 different
Let me-
options for you to look at.
All right.
Lease continuously, lease with purchase after 7 years,
Purchase
and
outright.
purchase up front with an
With an
O&M
amount.
agreement. And what are the costs and benefits of those 3, so you can compare those
Quickly.
with these 5 sites.
Okay. fine.
And as far as the placement, I think the only building that might be affected in this scenario with these 5 sites, it would be the DDS, the Development Services, if we look at the Avenue B site. So we would need to keep that in mind. So
All right.
I'll keep, and maybe even look at an alternative location for those, maybe on the front
Shade.
side, which would not impact the Avenue B potential construction.
All right. I think she covered it pretty well.
Yes.
Anything else?
So we'll pull the numbers from the last board presentation. We had the cash and purchase finance options. If it's something you'd like to do quickly, and if the board is willing, potentially there would be an option to approve Susan to move forward with negotiating one of these options, and that way, and then bring forward to the board the results of that.
Well, you won't need a PowerPoint presentation every time. So next time you'll come to us, it's like, there's these 3 options, please. We'll ask Susan to proceed with whatever, we feel is more appropriate. I see the inclination of the board to go ahead and do a project. I just don't think we are at the stage where we decide which way to go. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's,
yeah. I was one of the ones that, or probably the only one that was very against the purchasing, because I mean, I've seen it, and it just, for me,
Oh, that's
I wouldn't
right,
say.
you had one.
So, I just don't, I didn't want to get into it right now, but I mean, I've seen options, but I'll still be inclining very strongly to that side.
all right.
Well, I
fine.
think it is a fact, Luke, isn't it, that
Luke.
the most cost-effective overall long-term is purchase, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay, because I looked at it very, very closely and decided to do a purchase up front because it's a large increase in your payback. Yes. Right? Okay.
All right, Luke. I don't want to sound like Darth Vader, but this is your.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Luke. Fine. So the direction is to bring forth those options for us to make a decision on allowing you to negotiate whichever one we pick at the time. Correct?
Yeah.
And one more thing, Mr. Chairman.
Nope.
Susan, I would assume that when you're looking at a purchase, it could be written in the contract that the system must perform to a certain standard, or they got to come back and improve it, right?
Yeah.
A performance guarantee, right?
All right, well, thank you very much. And it seems to me like we can move on to the next item, really quick and easy item, which is the resolution number 2020-08, adopting the Yuma County 5-year economic development plan effective March 9 through March 8, 2025. And I say, Paul, excuse me?
We're going to pull this item and bring it back next week.
All right.
It's a typographical error in the upload, so we want to fix that. So you're adopting the
Okay,
precise
so
plan.
for all of us to understand, this has been going through a public opinion, public participation, public comment period. So this will only extend the public comment period for a little longer. So bring it to us when it's ready and cooked.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah. All right, so number 4, the county attorney authorize and approve the settlement of the claim brought in the case of CenturyLink Corporation against the Arizona Department of Revenue by reducing the full cash value of the property with tax numbers 56-729 from $974,699 and $5 to $900 million. $900 million? Oh, well, that's 974,699. 1,005. The numbers, it's like when we go to Washington, talk about billions of dollars now instead of just millions of dollars, and to $900 million. And authorize the chairman to execute all necessary settlement documents. We can't get into a lot of discussion about this. It's something we have discussed prior, and we're just getting down to the end of this. I don't think there's many choices to be made, so I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and approve the item as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and second to approve the item as presented and direct the county attorney to proceed as indicated. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of that item, and we move on now to item number, oh, wait a minute. The planning and zoning agenda. Full legal descriptions of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. We do have an expedited rezoning and public hearing. The items will be open as a group for public hearing and acted upon by one motion to adopt the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by a board member for separate consideration. That item will be discussed and acted upon separately following actions on expedited items. We have 1, 2, and 3 expedited items. Is there any board member that likes to pull them? And if not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve expedite them. Wait a minute, I gotta take them one at a time, right? I gotta read them.
Open them as a group for public hearing.
All right, so I did, but do we have to read them for the record? No? All right, so we have items 1, 2, and 3. One is rezoning case number 1909. The other one is special use permit case 1907. And the other one is rezoning case number 1912. They have all gone through the process and they're ready for us to just either decide on them or open them up again. Do I hear a motion to approve the items as presented?
So moved.
You still require a public hearing on these.
I do, huh?
Yes.
So hold on a minute. I get it. Everybody got antsy there for a moment. This was so unusual. It was going to happen so fast that if somebody just said, "Oh, wait a minute, wait."
We all jumped.
So we're going to have to open up the public hearing on all 3 items at the same time. So if there's anybody here from the public that wants to address any of these particular 3 items that are expedited, would you please step forth? If not, I'll close the public hearing and just open it for a second. Is there anyone that, no, I'm just kidding. I thought Maggie was coming over, wait a minute, wait. So, she just wanted to make sure there was a public hearing, right? Okay, good. So it's done. You were making a motion?
Move to approve all 3 items as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second to approve the expedited items. Any discussion? There won't be a discussion. They're expedited. So all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. This is probably the fastest and best hearing you guys will have in the remainder of your lives.
Yeah.
So we'll now go to these rezoning regular public hearing items, and the first item is a rezoning case. This is where staff will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. And the first one is rezoning case number 1914. Monty Sanders, agent for Rosa Sanders and Victor Lozano, requested rezoning of a parcel 1.77 net acres in size from light industrial to heavy industrial, 1 acre minimum, and a parcel 50 net acres in size from light industrial to heavy industrial, 2 acre minimum. Yes, this is assessor's parcels number 196-24, 020 and 021, located at 13711 South Avenue 3E, Yuma, Arizona, located in the 70 to 74 decibel noise zone. Who's taking this up?
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna have to declare a conflict of interest on this item.
Not because you own anything, but because you have a relative, is that?
Yeah, he's a relative of mine, so and now we'll.
Which in Somerton is not unusual. He's got like 12,000 relatives in Somerton. So, you know, it's just,
No,
I'm
he-
surprised, man.
He
I am
lives
really
in Yuma,
surprised.
so watch out, Yuma, we're taking
Yeah,
over.
well, this is like a pandemic from Somerton. They're infecting the whole county. Anyway,
And I'm gonna
go ahead.
excuse myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're
Fernando
excused.
Villegas, Senior Planner
He's
presenting rezoning case 1914. As stated, this is a request to rezone two parcels. One parcel is 1.7 net acres in size from light industrial to heavy industrial, 1 acre. And the second parcel is 5 acre, net acres in size from light industrial to heavy industrial, 2 acre minimum. I'm sorry. The intent of this rezoning is to bring the business operation of storage of inoperable vehicles into compliance with the Yuma County zoning ordinance. The next slide shows parcel 18 and 19 to the north, zone RA10 in citrus production. Parcel 11 to the west is in the city of Yuma jurisdiction owned by MCAS in agriculture production, zone military preservation. Parcel 22 to the south and east is zone light industrial and is in citrus production. The site plan here submitted by the applicant shows the existing buildings on the subject property. We have a house, accessory buildings, and an office. The next slide shows a 2017 aerial view of the subject property showing the operation of inoperable vehicles. Next, we have a picture of the subject property looking east from 3E. And we have another view of the property looking west from the north property line. The staff received a letter from MCAS requesting a navigation disclosure statement if it's approved. And the staff received 2 letters from adjacent property owners in opposition. Since only 3 property owners are located within the notification area, the opposition is 66.3% in number and 17.5% in area. This case requires a supermajority vote for approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial of this request. And Mr. Chairman, this concludes the staff presentation. Any questions for staff?
Any questions for staff?
Mm.
Oh, go ahead.
If we zone this heavy industrial, what can be on it?
Almost anything.
Mr. Chairman, we have a long list of permitted uses under heavy industrial. Just to give you an example, storage of oil, gasoline, jet fuel, correctional facilities, junk yards, propane distribution. We have like 30 or 40 uses that are permitted under heavy industrial. And I have a list if you want to see it.
No, it's okay.
Will this application allow us to require certain things, or is it, I mean, I guess you can't, and we have an attorney at the house, I guess you can't do anything that resembles conditional rezoning, is it?
Mr. Chairman, we have a zoning district called planned development. That would be an option. It wouldn't be an option today, but it would be an option that could be brought back to the board.
Well, I don't know if I personally, if I would feel comfortable with, you know, giving a site like this an industrial, you know, heavy industrial zoning without some restrictions. So maybe that's something that we could suggest to the property owner. Look, you know, it's just, you're asking for a type of rezoning that is really so broad that it may create an issue with the lemon groves next to it, with all the, you know, with all those people who may object to some of the objectionable uses that you can do with, you know, industrial zoning, heavy zoning.
Yes, Mr.
Another question.
Okay.
I'm not real, I don't know a whole lot about this, but are those cars required to have all their oil or all their liquids removed before they get crushed?
Sherman, I don't have an answer to that question. All we know is that we got a call from the public uh, regarding the operation of the business. We checked, we went to the site, and we opened a zoning violation case. And this was one of the options that the applicant had. He also has the option to apply for a special use permit, and that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to the applicant. And they also were concerned about the other uses that are allowed on the heavy industrial. So
I was just gonna bring that up. That's what I think is that way we can work with it.
All right,
Special use.
I'm gonna open the
Yeah.
public hearing. Is there anyone here from the applicant, representing the applicant, or anybody that wants to come up? Yes, do you want to say something?
Hi, my name is Monty Sanders. I'm owner of the property. And that was one of the, I didn't get to talk in the commission, it kind of opened up afterwards. But when I met with the staff, that's what we discussed was the heavy industrial. Because when I purchased the property, I've been on this lot, or in this area, since 2011. And I investigated prior to purchasing it. I got to operate a tow yard there. But now with some of the changes, they said, well, you can't have inoperable vehicles. And to your question, the vehicles do have oil, but they are properly, we've been investigated 3 times by anonymous complaints for an ADEQ has came out, did a complete review, no issues at all, and those have been turned over to the staff. So as far as oil removal or any of that stuff, it's
You're talking about
compliant.
contamination, right?
That's correct. There has been no issues at all. And across the street is a military base. They can do anything. All the things you talked about, they can do all of those things literally right across the street. There is no, it's not like we're not close to something that's next to some type of housing down the road. We're next to the military base. And that was the other reason I purchased the property, is because it's the proximity. They can do anything, fuel or any of that nature. That's the same type of property.
Oh, military.
Well, they can do anything. I mean,
Well,
there's
I know,
nothing
I
I could, and they have no issue with it.
And you know, Monty, before we get too far down here, I think that as much as possible, and you would find that is common between us, we normally try to work with the person or the individual that has any issues with the county to try to resolve those issues. And we normally try to find a way that we can address the concerns of the people around you too, because you know, although you have the military on one side, you do have a bunch of other people around you.
That's on the other side,
Which
correct.
is why it came up like
As
this.
is, and I understand that completely.
And so, but I do want to emphasize though, if staff, and you can, from just the discussion we're having, we're just looking at ways to make it work for you without having to, you know, get into a situation where, you know, we give you the type of zoning that is offensive to everybody out there, even though the military is next to them. You know, we understand that, but the military, I don't think, can put in a massage parlor or anything like that in there, you know, which is something that you may be able to do in a heavy industrial thing.
And the staff is what presented me to go this direction versus special use, because we have tow yards operating in residential areas in the county.
Yeah, well, the problem is I think the problem is the crushing and all those things. I mean,
That's
you want to happen.
Right. That's
Right?
exactly
It goes a
what we
little
wanna be able
beyond.
to do to dispose of the vehicles,
That's right.
because it's a problem.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's very difficult to, and we're also going to test you. There's no metal prices, so if you can't dismantle and get rid of the cars, it's kind of a problem to get rid of. And a good chunk of the cars I have there from the county that nobody else will pick up. I mean, that's the reason I have the cars, is that nobody
Oh, no,
else.
You don't mean county vehicles, do you?
No, I don't mean county vehicles. I mean abandoned vehicles that other than
abandoned
the sheriff department calls me on that nobody else will take.
All right. Look, this is in front of us as a zoning issue. It's you know, a rezoning case. I think we need to get through this and then try to get you a little bit better assistance in trying to resolve the issues that you still have on there. The fact that it requires a supermajority means that all 4 of us would have to vote in favor, and I don't know yet, because it doesn't seem to me like we can get a unanimous vote to do that. So let us go back to the discussion, see what we can do. Thank you, Monty.
Thank you.
Mr.
Chairman, because you had one supervisor with a conflict of interest, it'll just require 3 of the remaining 4.
All right, okay. All right, thank you. Are there any more questions, sir? No, no questions, okay, yeah. All right, staff, what were you gonna say? I thought you said you wanted to say something.
Oh, no, he already covered.
Oh, the attorney. Oh, you were trying to explain to us the supermajority vote when somebody's missing.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Now, again, what is the pleasure of the board?
Well, is there any other member of the public?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. You need to raise your hand, the coronavirus has got us all spooked.
John Lowry, 3578 East County 15th Street. I'm the property owner on the south and east side of this property. And you're aware of my things I didn't like about this proposal in the letter. One other thing that I'd like to add to that was at the Planning and Zoning Commission is one of the commissioners stated that his concern, and I hadn't even thought of that, is in the future, if the junkyard goes away, there's other things this could be used for. And staff mentioned like feedlots, slaughterhouses, stuff like that. Plants and yards for formulation and manufacture of fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. That wouldn't bother me, but it might bother you. Have a subdivision about 5/8 of a mile away from that Tierra Mesa. You think they're going to want a feedlot or something going down there in the future? I don't think so. Another thing I'd like to point out to you well, it looks like there's other things about this that they're not meeting the standards. Here from your website, it says junkyards. Took this off your website, Yuma County Zoning Ordinance. This is 614-02 permitted uses. And it said junkyards, wrecking yards, and auto dismantling yards. These uses shall be screened by a solid fence or wall, and no material shall be stored in such a manner as to project from or be visible above the fence or wall when viewed externally from a point at the same elevation. That's like you and me. So the material is being stored. There's only a 6-foot chain link fence around there right now. A lot of these cars are outside on the north end of that. They're not even inside that chain link fence. You also have RV vehicles, trailers there. Those are a lot taller than 6 feet. So we're not, it's not being, this thing isn't being run up according to your own statutes.
And I think that we're trying to get to the point where we deal with those issues as opposed to just leaving it as it is, which they can do basically what they're doing. So we're trying to get to a point where the applicant comes in and says, look, I want to do this. I want to be within the standards or within the regulations. And a special use permit would allow us to mandate some things in there that we couldn't otherwise to help solve some of those issues.
And then staff will ensure the owner follows.
That's the way it works.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else in the public? No? Yeah, if not, I'm closing the public hearing and return it back to the board. Anybody want to take a snap at it?
Well, for the reasons that Mr. Lowry just brought up, and I think we've heard from the board as well, I don't think heavy industrial is what we want.
The way to go.
I would recommend that the applicant come back with a special use permit, and then work with staff through these issues that Mr. Lowry just brought up can be addressed through a special use permit. And I don't think the board is not in favor of taking actions that just remove
exacerbate
current
the problem.
use, but we want to improve for the neighbors. So I'll recommend denial of this request.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and second for denial of this request. Obviously, there's been some direction given to the applicant and that this is not in any way precluding you from following a process that can work. Is there any discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. So, Mr. Sanders, we'll see you back soon, hopefully. Mr. Lowry, we understand what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next one is, boy, this is a long agenda. Who put it together? I think somebody was trying to.
What we get for taking that extra week.
That's right. Well, what I got was a handshake from Paul Gozar after he attended that meeting. So
There's
this
a
is
6-foot
enough
buffer
space.
now.
But you, my friend, you're too close. The 6 foot don't work with you. I knew it was too good to be true that, Mr. Goza was so nice to me. Anyway, the next item is development services. It's a commission initiative 1903, a proposed text amendment to the subdivision regulations to add section 7.11 and 7.12 that will specify the requirements when combining lots and parcels, lot ties. Maggie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. Yes, this item is a proposed commission initiative to amend the Yuma County subdivision regulations. And the intent is to add a requirement for lot ties. The requirement is similar to land division permits. However, it will only apply to properties being intended to be combined or tied. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this request. The reason that staff initially brought this forward to both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the board was at the recommendation of the county assessor, and he's here to provide any additional question or clarification as to the benefit of adding this new requirement to the Yuma County subdivision regulations. Like I stated, the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission was a unanimous for approval.
Maggie, a lot of this stuff was already on the books, wasn't it?
Mr. Chairman, some of the text that's in the proposed text amendment also applies to land division permits, and it also applies to new subdivisions being developed.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Okay.
What is the current fee?
Mr. Chairman, we currently don't have a requirement for lot ties, so there is no fee. Staff, the next item on the agenda is to adopt a fee or amend the fee schedule to adopt a fee.
Contrary to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I don't need to hear from the county assessor. But if the rest of the board wants to, he's here.
No, I'm good.
This will only add 52 minutes to the meeting, so. No, I'm just kidding, Joe. Yeah, we want to acknowledge your presence, and I want to tell you that I don't know if it's because you're retiring or something, but I've been hearing a lot of good things about you lately. So, it's good.
Myself on Facebook saying.
Yeah, I don't know, man, but we do appreciate you, though. Anything else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to accept the proposed text amendment to the subdivision regulations as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, did you open the public hearing other than to Mr. Worley?
Okay, well, other than Mr. Worley, is there anyone here that wants to address the board on this particular issue? If not, then I'll close the public hearing now and go back to the board for the motion.
That's twice.
That's right. Oh, Maggie. Did you make a motion?
Yes, I recommend.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Supervisor Simmons makes a motion to approve item number 2 as presented, which is Commission Initiative 1903. There's been a second, so now we open it for discussion. Question?
Yeah, Maggie, prior to adding this verbiage, what have we been doing?
Mr. Chairman, when the assessor's office used to have a form called a lot tie form, so that whenever somebody wanted to combine 2 lots or 2 parcels, they simply went through that process to combine the lots. It didn't require submittal of a site plan or submittal of any other supporting documentation other than the signature of the current property owner or owners for the lots. It did require.
It'll close in a
It'll
minute.
close.
No, it's open on purpose?
I just opened it coming back in.
Okay.
All right. It did require a cursory review by the Planning and Zoning Division, the Building Safety Division, I believe the Treasurer's Office, and the Assessor's Office.
Wow.
There was no fee involved with that procedure other than the recording fees for the instrument.
There's still none until the next item. That would just require for us to go through the process. The next one is the one that actually assesses or creates a fee, which you may want to argue the point later.
Probably.
Yeah. No, really, I think that the idea is to create a system that's consistent so that people go through a system that advises everybody along the way that this is happening, because it was only happening in one area of the county that wasn't necessarily the area of the county that involves the departments that it should have involved at the beginning. I know that lot ties go through a process, for example, in San Luis, where you take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You know, it's a process that you get to before you split a lot. And sometimes during the process is when you find out what problems there are. When it comes to the county assessors directly, it doesn't allow a lot of comment, a lot of review, period. And this will allow review, which I think eventually ends up being somewhat better than the way it's being done now. I think that's my opinion. Is there any more questions?
Marvelous. We come up with ways to make it more difficult.
I know. That's what I always say. You know, you quit while you're ahead, but I don't follow my own advice sometimes. There was a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody
Where's
opposed?
Supervisor
Motion
Porteous?
carried. He left. He asked for permission to leave.
Just during that one thing.
Well, because he
meeting.
said that he's trying to establish some social distance.
For the coronavirus, huh?
No, he said he was going to have some Corona beers. Let him go, but it's okay. No. Do we vote? We did,
Yes,
right?
we
So
did.
we move on to the next item, which is another item for development services. Well, he's going to stay here to see the end of the damage. Public hearing and action to approve an amendment to the Department of Development Service, which is a fee schedule, adding a $600 fee for review of a lot time map not within a recorded subdivision, and a $380 fee for a lot time map in a recorded subdivision. Why is it different? I mean, I understand the process, but why is it different?
Mr. Chairman, there's a more time involved in reviewing a lot time map that's not within a recorded subdivision versus a lot tie or lot combination for two or three lots that have already been that have already gone through the process.
They have the new location, you have the legal descriptions already there. You have a lot of items that you don't need to do, as opposed to when somebody wants to split a lot in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Mr. Chairman, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended a fee of $600, and they for lot ties that are not within recorded subdivisions, and a fee of $380 for lot ties that are within recorded subdivisions. Included in your packet is the breakdown of the time and cost involved to process the lot ties. And staff is recommending adoption of the fees as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Before you start asking your question, is there anyone here in the public that wants to address the board on this particular issue? That opens up the public hearing portion of it. Nobody? Going out once, twice, three times? We're going back to the board. I'm closing the public hearing and getting it back to the board. Now, Maggie, you were saying that there's a breakdown of cost included in our packet?
Yes, there's two spreadsheets in your packet that show the breakdown of how staff came up with the suggested fees.
Okay, is there any
So
questions?
18 hours just to process a application, huh?
A little more than that, but.
So what does your civil engineer tech do for 2 hours on a lot type?
Review.
Mr. Chairman, they have to review, they have to ensure that the legal description is correct, that all required signatures are on the lot time map. There's other, it's similar to a building permit review. There's things that they have to review in order to process lot time maps.
I do want to make the statement that under state statutes, we're not supposed to make any money on this. So you guys have to be clear and precise and concise about the need for any of this, costs to be borne by the general public. We're not allowed under state statute to make any money or to make more money than is required to do whatever the task is in front of you. So the questions are more like, well, will it take that much time? And I think that when we get down to it, that's getting into an area where we would have to really know more about the subject to be able to question some of these items. But logically, what we're looking at is keeping the cost as affordable as possible to people who want to do the right thing. Otherwise, sometimes the fee, it's a detriment. You know, some people just, if a fee is too high, won't bring the item up and they will do other things. So hopefully you understand that the questions are not questioning necessarily, you know, what you come up with. It's just us trying to figure out a way to keep the costs as low as possible for the general
Yeah,
public.
you know, I have to say, when I read that at first, I thought, man, I didn't think we had fees today, right? And which you did tell us, to go from 0 to 600 overnight, kind of hard to swallow. But I will commend you for a very detailed spreadsheet showing where that all came from.
And let me tell you, my concern, and I know because I run a nonprofit, is on the indirect cost allocation, which is sort of like an overhead type fee, you know, where you put a percentage to whatever it is that you charge for, and then you add another, you know, indirect cost allocation, which I know is general standard practice in government, but I've always had a problem with that. And they're not high, you know, your percentage is not high, 8% and 9%, it's not high. But I always, that's the kind of expense that is tough to quantify, because you really, the rest of it, you quantify by hour, by the time it takes, by the people involved, by the equipment they use. Those are kind of, to me, easier to justify. The indirect cost allocations, that was been you know, a little borderline, because I think it sort of sometimes, it's a little bit redundant. It's like saying, okay, we're going to charge you for whatever light it took and whatever, you know, whatever. That's just a very broad area. Any other questions? I mean, it's tough to question fees without more a basis.
So did you actually time these people? Actually keep a time clock while they were processing these to come up with these numbers? Is that how you did that?
Mr. Chairman, we're not timing review there. It's based on average reviews. We do have a current process for a land division permit, and the review times would be similar to what it takes to review a land division permit.
Having trouble with the mount, huh?
Well, you know what? I am still going to stick to this. I'm in an effort to create a new system that people can follow, and in an effort to make sure that it's an affordable system. I would like to see it be $510, which is without. Did we publish this? Excuse me, I'm just asking the question because I there's a little bit of leeway when you don't. I mean, if we're going to be discussing the fee structure and we have leeways to change that, do we?
You wouldn't be able to go above the actual cost that the staff determined.
No, that's what I mean. Look, to me, staff is very, very, very concise about determining the actual cost. I'm just taking out the indirect cost allocation on all this stuff, which is to me some sort of a nebulous overhead that, you know, we apply on things, which is approved. It's an approved overhead. I just wonder whether we need to double, you know, after, you know, people get paid to do the job. That other 10% or 9%, I mean, that's just policy more than anything else. And I wanted to keep it affordable so people could use it. So that's why I picked 510, because it's actually, before you put in the indirect cost allocation, both of them, you know, that would be the cost. In terms of the 380, what's it, 84, it actually ended up being 325.79, which I think you can round off to 325, and it would suffice for me to say that we tried as much as possible to make this an affordable process. At the same time, we try to cover everybody's, you know, everybody's cost. You know, that sounds reasonable?
I like it.
Okay. All right, so my suggestion is that we make a motion, that I'll make a motion that we keep the cost at $510 for, what was the first one?
Non-subdivision.
Non-subdivision, and 325 for within a subdivision. Is that okay?
I'll second.
It's been a motion and second to approve that fee structure. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's a lot of work. Congratulations to get it all done.
Thank you.
Item number 4, Development Services, Planning and Zoning Division, another commission initiative, a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance, section 1107-0, temporary buildings and uses to amend section 1107.01A4, add sections 1107.01C and D, amend sections 1107.03, 1107.04, and 1107.05, and add sections 1107.06 and 1107.07 for the purpose of allowing the Board of Supervisors to monitor and have more control over temporary use permits. This goes back to our desire to have people know that we don't appreciate, well, we won't allow accessory buildings on zones that are near the bases. Is this the one?
So, Mr. Chairman,
No,
this is
this is
concerning temporary use permits.
Oh, that's right.
That's a way back when that, well.
We asked for this.
That Arizona Jamboree.
That's
Yes.
right.
Out in Texas.
This is the one that controls that, sorry.
Yeah, this item is being brought to you, and it's a result of the discussion that took place concerning the Arizona Jamboree event. The board did hold a couple work sessions and held discussion regarding the proposed
That's right. And we were
text
also,
that staff is suggesting.
yeah, I mean, we're also looking for a way to balance the, overload of requirements on some activities with the need to have the water users and all those involved entities to be aware of what's going on. Thank you, the assessors, not you, Maggie. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
I'm gonna open the public hearing portion of this so that we can have some people, if any, make a comment on this. Is there anybody that wants to make a comment on this commission initiative, number 1904? If not, I'll close the public hearing, get back to the board, and now we can have questions. Are there any questions? Is that enough control and not too much control?
I think it sounds all right.
Right. Any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve Commission Initiative number 19-04 as
Presented. Any second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and second to approve Commission Initiative number 1904 as presented. Any discussion on the item? If no discussion, all those in favor signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry, aye.
Item number 5, another
Thank you,
development
Maggie.
service. She's not done yet, but
Okay.
it's okay.
Running ahead of her.
Another one. She's busy today, but the Commission Initiative number 1905, a proposed text amendment to the zoning ordinance to create the dark sky overlap district, section 623.00, and amend the official zoning map. I do want to make a point before we begin with this one, and that is that the majority of these commission initiatives have begun as board has directed you to do some changes. So there's been a lot of work involved in it, and we've gone through some cases that at the end of the day sort of lead to this, because it seems to me like we're going through this process is fairly quick, and it may give people the impression that this is done, just today, but it isn't. Today is the last portion, the last part of this whole process. And this dark sky overlay district was also discussed prior to today. So this is actually narrowing it down and making some changes that we feel are appropriate so that it's not a very disruptive situation, but more indicative of the quality of life of the people in those particular areas. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, this item was brought to the Board of Supervisors back in early 2019. That's when staff or the board asked staff to look into the possibility of adopting this ordinance. It was also discussed during a couple of work sessions with the Board of Supervisors. So what you see today with the draft language that's in your zoning, in your packet, and also there's a map included in your packet that indicates that area that will be subject to the dark sky overlay district. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this text amendment unanimously.
Do you have you don't have a PowerPoint presentation? You can't put the overlay in the screen, right?
Mr.
I mean,
Chairman,
we
I
can
do
see
not
it
have a
here.
PowerPoint presentation.
Which is very gratifying, but okay.
Maggie, what did you just say the planning and zoning did?
Planning and Zoning Commission
Unanimous.
recommended approval of this request with a vote of 6-2.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
Okay.
And I've got some other things, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to.
I'm gonna open up the public hearing process. Is there anybody here to talk about the dark sky overlay? If not, then I'll bring it back to the board. Go ahead.
I noticed the 6-2 votes. I went back and looked at the minutes from December. The two members of the commission who voted nay voted aye in December. Can you tell me why? What was the discussion there? They voted for it and then 2 months later voted against it. And I couldn't see in the minutes why.
Mr. Chairman, the original date that went to the Planning and Zoning Commission was a request to actually open or initiate the text amendment. They weren't voting on the actual language that was presented before them. What they voted on in January was the language and the actual public hearing on the amendment to the zoning ordinance. That may have been the difference.
Yeah,
in their vote.
You don't recall what their objection was?
I'd have to look through the minutes.
Okay, I did, but I didn't see specifically. I may have missed it. I have a problem with under 623.07, paragraph D, change of use. And just for the public, it reads, whenever the use of any existing building, structure, or premises is changed to a different use, all outdoor lighting shall be reviewed and made to comply with all provisions of this section. That could put a pretty tough burden on a small business entity that, say they were going to change from a retail store to a restaurant or vice versa. That could be a somewhat substantial impact as far as costs to them. Was that evaluated? I guess it depends on the business, right?
I'm not sure what you mean by the question as to was it evaluated?
The cost to upgrade lighting to new fixtures.
There was no, Mr. Chairman, there was no evaluation or cost comparisons as to what the current regulations require versus what the new regulations would require.
Yeah,
in
so
terms of cost.
when something's existing, we're trying to get ahead of future development, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to me to be too much of a penalty for someone to change what an existing structure is going to do. Retail store to something else. Let's say they're a flower shop, it closes and now they're going to be a boutique. They've got to go change all the lighting. Is there any reason we can't just remove that?
Mr. Chairman, the language that is before you today cannot be modified. This is the way it was brought to you back for discussion items. As a discussion item back in 2019, the Planning and Zoning Commission initiated the language as what's in your packet. In order for us to make any changes, the current commission initiative would have to be denied, and we would have to bring a new item before you with removing the language that is proposed to be removed.
Mr. Chair.
Well, I'd like to know why couldn't we remove that, though? I mean, it just seems burdensome.
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer that to legal counsel.
Well, I understand what you just told us. I'm asking you as a planning director, what is the need to keep that language in there? Other than trying to upgrade lighting, I get that. I'm just afraid of the unintended impact.
Mr. Chairman, if the intent is to adopt the dark sky overlay district for a portion of Yuma County, then why not make an existing use being changed to a new use have to comply with the new language?
Which is a normal process.
It is a normal. Mr. Chair and Mr. Chair and Russell and Maggie, didn't we move to have it at Foothills Boulevard East because there's so little development out in that area east of the Foothills, that Foothills Boulevard, that everything west of Foothills Boulevard has been pretty much developed, and we didn't want this to occur.
That's where it is.
It's what it is.
I know, and that's why we did it, is because there's very little development out that direction. and the city of Wilton is exempt from it.
Yeah.
So that you're not going to run into very many businesses, if any, that are going to have to modify because
Well,
they will be,
You would actually be dealing with new businesses more.
yes, you will be dealing with just new businesses because we moved it far enough out that there's not a whole lot of businesses out there. In fact, with the city of Welton it being exempted, I mean.
And I believed, I thought we had a grandfather clause in there, that it
There
didn't
is
affect
now
current.
somewhere. Yeah, it does, but this is,
Except-
like I said,
it's
if
a new-
a flower shop turns into a.
Except when you change it.
When you
the
change
use.
it.
Oh, they
It's a
changed.
change of use.
Okay.
And it would trigger that, so everywhere there's lighting outside that building would have to be upgraded.
And Mr. Chairman, that would apply to any other portion of the zoning ordinance too. If a flower shop changed to a different use, they'd have to comply with
The new one.
The new,
The
the
new
new
everything.
rules,
The
yeah.
new
rules.
everything.
Yes, the new regulations for the new
parking
use.
spaces
And it's the same thing for the dark sky overlay district.
Let me just say that the only comment the opposition was, why aren't we forcing the cities, to lead the way? I mean, that was the comment. And I think that when we started discussing this, we specifically were trying to address the issue of people moving out in the county that want to see the sky, and so we were trying to be sensitive to the possibility, or that people who move out there want to see the sky and they don't want all this light pollution up there. And so we were trying to recognize that. At the same time, we recognized that most of the developed areas are already developed, and we didn't want to impact all these businesses that are already there that have,
That's right.
So I think we did that with the overlay. That's why I wanted to see if we could put the overlay up, because then we would all be able to see that it is it's east of the,
It's on our
it's east
computer,
of the Foothills Boulevard, and it
Look,
covers basically
look, that's-
unincorporated areas that are, it's broad, but it really isn't very populated. So if there's a business that wants to go up there, then we're telling them, look, people move out there, and they like to keep the light pollution to a minimum. So we're trying to be proactive, and at the same time, we're trying not to impact the current business owners in that area. And I think you're doing that with this overlay. You excluded the cities because that would be a major change in requirements. And so I think you've done what we asked you to do, and what you're bringing up. It's other than the fact that every once in a while someone may end up being impacted with the changeover of use. We have avoided impacting the vast majority of the businesses that are already there. And yes, if they remodel something, they're going to end up with some issues there with the overlay. But man, I don't know how many businesses are in that corridor, but they're not that many compared to a city or the Fortuna. All right, so any more discussion?
I do have more, yes.
Other than Supervisor McLeod, is there any more discussion? Supervisor McLeod?
Yeah, under 623.10, general requirements, the light trespass and glare. Are we going to have county staff running around with their little light meters?
Yeah.
Checking these properties? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, is that necessary?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if somebody files a complaint that a specific or a certain property is not in compliance with the dark sky overlay district, we may either have to hire a contractor to do that, because it'll have to be done at night,
Right.
or staff will have to be trained in how to measure the amount of light that is projecting onto other properties.
So, okay, so let me be clear. That would be strictly complaint driven?
Mr.
Rather than
Chairman,
running around,
yes.
checking even a new development?
Well, Mr. Chairman, the new development, they would have to submit plans showing their lighting fixtures, and then they'll also have to show, give projections as to where the light will be, how the lighting will be directed. So for a new development, it'll be something that is addressed by staff prior to a building permit being approved.
That would
For
be my
existing
expectation.
developments or something that did not have to comply with these regulations, it'll be complaint driven.
Okay.
And if it's
But an
existing, it'll be non-conforming.
Right, yeah, so we're not gonna go back in and say, you gotta turn your lighting.
Right, everybody, somewhat comfortable with the dark sky ordinance?
You know what, 4 or 5 years from now, time will tell.
Yeah, 7 years from now, we'll, look at that lease and see. Yeah. All right. No more discussion on this. I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
I'll make a motion, we approve as presented.
The motion and seconded to approve the item as presented. Any more discussion on this item? If not, then all those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Maggie, can you contact Ann and let her know her hard work finally paid off?
I will try to find her. Yes.
All right, so.
I was in, what, '06 we tried?
Did we vote on it?
It went down in flames.
Did we vote? I got sidetracked. We haven't voted on it yet? Okay. Stop sidetracking the process here. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Now, we go on to the reversion public hearings in accordance with section 404.01. I don't know, parenthesis, I think it's L, and the parenthesis 7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinances. The board will conduct a hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification in the following cases. Case number 1, from Development Services, rezoning case number 0529, in accordance with sections, as already mentioned, of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 40-acre minimum zoning classification on assessor's parcel number 186-36-001, located at the alignment of Avenue 39E and south of Old Highway 80, Tacna, Arizona. And we will get a PowerPoint presentation.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Rubio?
thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. Chairman Reyes is actually section 404.01 I-7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance.
Aye.
You're
close. Aye. Well, aye.
This is the original map that was submitted back in 2005 when the rezoning petition was submitted and approved by the board. This is the current map. Not a lot has changed as far as zoning around the property. This is an aerial imagery. Not that many changes as far as development and growth. This is a concept layout. The applicant was proposing a warehouse type building with some industrial uses. And the schedule for development that was approved by the board was number A, that they provide legal access to the property either by means of public right-of-way or private access easement. B, that they do a traffic impact study and then develop and construct the improvements identified by that study. And C, that all permits be issued within 2 years of approval by the board and finalized as per code requirements. The deadline to comply with the schedule for development was January 31st of 2020. The board has the options of either extending the time to comply with the schedule for development or reverting this back to the original RA40 zoning classification. Staff did contact one of the property owners, and the property owner verbally stated that they would prefer another 2-year extension. And with that, staff is recommending that the board do a 2-year extension to comply with the schedule for development.
In other words, you're recommending that the board approve a 2-year extension, right?
Yes.
This is public hearing, so I'm gonna open it to the public. And is there anyone here in the public that wants to speak about this particular item? If not, then I'll bring it back to the board for their questions, comments.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Supervisor Simmons, you see any reason not to grant any kind of opinion? And my next comment would be, I mean, this is 15 years old now.
Yeah,
So
I mean, somebody needs to.
Why don't we do it for 4 or 5 years?
I
That way
don't
they
know.
don't have to come back, chewing up staff time to deal with this again.
Because it'll take that
I
long
don't,
to get anything.
I don't know, I was
developed.
surprised that that would be the tack you would take. It would be more like, well, wow, Jesus, if they haven't done it in 15 years, why give them any more time?
That area-
So
I don't see the harm.
Well, I don't see the harm either. But, so.
I think it's wonderful.
4?
That would be my recommendation. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'll move that rezoning case number 05-29, we grant a 4-year extension.
Compliance.
I'll second that. Oh,
Yep.
I'm sorry, Tim.
No, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
That's
Darren.
fine, it's fine. Okay, there's been a motion and a second to grant a 4-year extension to this, in this particular rezoning case, reversion rezoning case. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and then we move on to discussion and action items, which is where the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. Discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items. A report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature will impact to Yuma County. An update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priorities, and to authorize the chairman to sign a letter of support for Senate Bill 1403 and House Bill 2741, which support funding for the fourth year funding career and technical educational districts. Paul Melcher, your time is up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Paul Melcher, Director of Economic Development, Intergovernmental Affairs. Keeping that in, your hook is short today. Mr. Chairman, on Friday, the county administrator had sent to all the board members the updated list of all of the bills that had been transferred between the two chambers of the houses. I didn't want to go through each one, but when you go through there, it kind of separates the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. So I wanted to highlight on this update really quickly for you some of the more interesting items that came up in addition to the ones that we've been continually watching. So I'll skip down to H 2016 and S 1494 were continuations for the Department of Water Resources. So from time to time, those bills get presented. There are audits and reviews done in the departments, but this extends those out to 2028. When a couple months ago, Supervisor Pancrazy, you asked to check on some of the water bills.
Yes.
So some of the ones that came up, water rights, what a lot of the bills do in this case is they continue to preserve the water rights of the owner. So for example, on the conservation notice, if you happen to go into a conservation program and you're not using some of your water or not getting delivery of it, that means you're not forfeiting it either. And it doesn't go into the general discussion about being able used or not going into non-use.
Yes, good.
The water substitute acreage for 2647 means that within a contiguous area or within defined as a farm area, that if one field goes unirrigated because it's not either producing or not capable of receiving irrigation, that you could substitute some additional acreage for that. It was interesting that the aquifer protection permits, this included an extension to for Class V wells and to consider them as exempt, so there's additional opportunities for water to be injected into aquifers. For the desalting plant, this is a resolution requesting that the Yuma desalting plant actually go into production to offset some of the reductions in Lake Mead. So as we move forward, the thought is that the water could be used locally so it doesn't have to be drawn out of Lake Mead. Water banking for storage credits was about the same issue. As long as you're banking the water, that you get the credit for it and you're not subject to losing it. In regard to the port of entry and border security, I know that H23 is the repeated ADOT bill. I just thought it would be good it made it through. So just to keep the attention on there. If you haven't already, you might encourage you and your friends and everybody to come out in opposition to that. We've already submitted 2 letters in opposition for this move, but I think that carries a lot of weight.
You made it through the House?
Yes. In H 2084, the international boundary wall, the ability for a private citizen to build a boundary wall passed through as well. The H 2415 appropriated $1 million for border sheriffs to be able to provide cameras and other safety and security equipment. HCR 2011 is a resolution just in support of generally what the Border Patrol does. And then a really interesting one that we'd been working on, if you'll recall, as part of our talking points when we were advocating for the equal treatment between California and Texas and Arizona ports, the same type of scrutiny in terms of the overall inspections. What the 1006 does is it actually advocates for Arizona ports to be under a 7-day operating period as well to be able to take produce, just like California and Texas ports do. It was one of those things I guess I just never asked and wasn't aware that we weren't doing that. So that's just requesting that the Arizona ports have that same ability. So Mr. Chair, really in short right now in relation to the budget, from the notes that we received at the latest CSA LPC meeting, that the House and Senate seem to be pretty well moving forward on their budgets. but it seems to be a big contrast with what the governor has in there. So there'll still be some work on that. So the two houses are moving forward. Seem to be, they're about a little bit over 2 weeks for the rest of the bills to get a Senate, or a committee assignment based on the House of Origin. So as they've transferred over, if there's not a committee assignment received, there's still a likelihood that that bill might not go forward, but there's always still the strike-all method that could come up later. And mentioning strike-alls at the end, we received an update on House Bill 2814, which was the bill that we ran for the economic development incentives for rural areas. While that didn't pass out of the House, we do anticipate that it's going to get a strike-all to be considered back in rules for the Senate again. There were some minor items that were still being worked out, but I wouldn't be surprised if that comes back. And Julie Engel from GYDC was very optimistic that it would come back. Mr. Chairman, in short, that's the legislative update from the state.
Where is the ferry location?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Oh, it moved forward.
It's gone
So
to the
it moved
Senate?
from the House to the Senate.
Good.
Okay. All right, I mean, we do get a report on where those bills are, but, you know, it's always nice to, you know, with things moving, that's what's going to happen, though. I mean, things sort of have a way of waiting until the last minute, and then things happen really quickly when they try to get that session over with.
I have a question.
Supervisor?
Paul, what was 2814? What was the vote on that? Do you know off the top of your head? Was it pretty close? I'll look it up. Never mind.
I'll have to look it up.
I'll look it up.
Supervisor Pancrazy, because I can't remember what the last vote was in rules and how that came out, so.
Okay, did it make it to the floor?
It did make it to the House rules, but
That's it.
but I think there was the real consideration they had was the fear of being sued, because since it is a rural, very specific incentives, they were concerned that maybe the urbanized areas would sue, and I think that was one of the concerns that was coming up. So the balance is there to find language that it doesn't appear to the urbanized areas that we're somehow getting the urban or the rural areas a distinct advantage over the urbanized areas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Do you want it all to report on the trip to DC?
Mr. Chairman, we could do that later, or I could, from my standpoint, it was very informative, and
well, I do want
if you want
to
to wait for that. But
all right, well, I do want to say before I forget that I was quite impressed with your knowledge of facts and figures and how helpful it was to actually be able to, you know, sort of turn it over to you when the time arose for actual details on some of these bills. So thank you very much. And if it was your first experience, I hope it doesn't sour you in the process. But it was a good job.
Thank you, Supervisor Reyes. That's very kind of you to say, and I'll reflect back to the comment that you made about Luke. It's kind of my nerdy side. I really do enjoy that because it is getting the projects. You see the progress, and we have some that the light is at the end of the tunnel. And I know that the fairgrounds is a heavy lift, but some of these other ones that fall off, it's very reassuring. And I think the real takeaway is that we didn't get the absolute no out of something. That even looking at the amount of the fairgrounds relocation study, it wasn't, well, we can never afford this. I think it was really helpful.
Well, that's a surprising thing, that when you move onto the federal side of, government, the numbers are stunning. I mean, they talk about billions of dollars. I mean, we talk about hundreds of thousands or maybe a million or something. They talk about $1 billion. Nothing. The scale of things are just not. I mean, when we talk about the port of entry in San Luis at 248 million, nobody blinked. I mean, I said 153 was a great amount, and nobody said, no, it's way too much. It's just incredible to have that perspective happen. But anyway, thank you very much. That was a very good trip as far as I'm concerned. And we don't get to see the impact of those trips right away, but you find later on that when the discussion's being had, especially because we involve staff, which is very good, because if you know anything about the way the system works, staff is the one that pushes things through. So I think that the staff that we got to see was very receptive, and they were very good about taking some of our projects and taking them forward, especially projects like PILT, which everybody understands what's about. I mean, they all understood that we were not really arguing about their support for the yearly appropriation, but we were looking to see how that could become a multi-year funding source, so we don't have to go back and beg every year that we go back there and beg for that appropriation to happen. So, you know, it was overall, I considered that to be a pretty successful trip. Thank you.
And the other portion of that too, I would also compliment NACO for a fantastic conference, because it also allowed me to see that other portion of it. Over the past years, I've been sending up those resolutions for NACO on the policy advisement portions of it. It's great to see that process move forward, so that when we, you know, we'll start working on those April, May already to get those ready for the July summer conference. And so that was very helpful to see how that works as well.
And I do also, before we leave this subject, I do want to thank Desiree for putting together that schedule, the last minute schedule, and trying everything she could to make sure that we knew where to go and when to go. We did make some changes along the way ourselves, but essentially that was very good. It was a pretty heavy schedule, though, I tell you. You know, it was a full day schedule, and then the other day was half a day, but they were very intensive. And, you know, unfortunately, I know you can't plan it, but they had us going from one side of they had the Cannon building, then you had to go to the, you know, Russell, and then you had to go to Loneworth, and then all of a sudden your next meeting is two, you know, buildings on the other side. So
You
for
got
some
your
of us,
exercise,
for
huh?
some of us older folks, that was a little taxing, but I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Paul.
Welcome. Mr. Chairman, we do have the final consideration for you for the
Oh, that's right.
letters of support.
Yeah, there's a letter of support, to sign a letter of support funding for the fourth year of funding career and technical education district. I think that.
Yes, and the reason why we
should
bring
it.
that up is one of the focal points within the economic development plan is really working on workforce development. We understand that developing skills at the high school level is very important, because we want to look at several different pathways moving forward for the attainment of skills. Some will be certifications, some will be college degrees, and so on, but we still think it's skill attainment which is the focus. And I have Kevin Imes here. He's the executive director for STEADY, that if you had any questions about the letters, the importance of the fourth year, he'd be happy to answer them. So.
Oh, we've been supportive of this process all the way through. I don't think there's any.
You got
Thank you for being here. but
Thanks for being here.
We got it.
Yes, we're
Mr. Chairman,
very
I would move that we authorize the chairman to sign a letter of support for Senate Bill 1403 and House Bill 2741, which support funding for the fourth year of funding career and technical education districts.
I'd like my name on it as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, look, sometimes some of these bills, you know, I know that, and I practiced that because I thought I was going to be able to say it today, but we pride ourselves in conducting these meetings in a very nonpartisan way. And it really shows when you send a letter from every member that it really is the case, because sometimes I think the majority rules and the chairman in the majority gets to sort of take positions on this stuff. I don't think that's the case in Yuma County. I think in Yuma County, most of the time, almost all the time, you know, most of the stuff we support is very bipartisan. I don't think we split in party lines. I don't remember the last time. But, you know, so maybe that's,
I don't think ever.
you know, the chairman, yeah, I can sign the letter, but I think if you add the names of the rest of the supervisors for them to sign onto it, you would have a little more impact. I can, you know, the narrative can be done, but then I'll sign it and the rest of the supervisors can sign it too. Okay?
The letter actually is formatted to include everyone's signature.
Good.
Oh, good.
All right, so let's make a motion to authorize the chairman and members of the board to sign a letter of support for Senate Bill 1403 and House Bill 2741.
I will accept that friendly amendment.
And I'll second the
I made a motion. It's okay. You'll second it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's been a motion made by me and a second supervisor.
Well, there was already a motion.
Well, there was already a motion. Sorry.
Russell moved it,
That will,
and I'll second
that will
All
motion.
in favor?
Oh, wait. I think that what happened here is he had a motion on the floor and I amended it. So that's why he said I accept the amendment. So we vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment, so signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All right. Anybody opposed?
I do.
So now we have an amended motion that will not require, but, you know, will require that all members sign the letter. All those in favor of that motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. So it will carry everybody's signature. Thank you very much. The next item, last item in the calendar, just before noon. Benito's been asking for this for a long time. The event and calendar current events, where board members and county administrators will report on and may discuss events attended or to be attended on behalf of the county, may present a brief summary of current events, and may update the schedule for future board of supervisors meeting as appropriate. No legal action will be taken. Supervisor Pancrazzi, we'll begin with you. Hopefully,
I attended the fair relocation meeting and we combined our committees into one, and I'm very happy to find out that the fair bill that Tim Dunn is running is moving along just wonderfully. Thank you very much. I attended the 82nd drug court graduation. I am always moved by those folks who are turning their lives around and making such a huge difference in their lives and in their families' lives by graduating from drug court. I attended the Southwest Ag Summit, which was very informative. I learned a lot about hemp that I had no idea about, and also I attended the water sessions. And then I attended the harvest dinner that evening. And then I attended Barbecues and Brews down here on Main Street. What a wonderful event that was. It was, it was very crowded. I did arbor tree planting at McGraw in Gila Vista with the kids from, I worked with a group from Gila Vista planting trees, and it was such a neat experience. The media teacher at Gila Vista the kids in his class, 3 of them, did a training video so the kids knew what to do when they went out there. And then Pendleton Tree Service, that gentleman was the one in the video, and then he was also there approving the trees that were being planted. So for Arbor Day, I attended that. This afternoon is the Chamber Legislative Update Committee, and on Wednesday is our Employee Appreciation Years of Service and Employee of the Year celebration. So.
Right.
Next week.
Oh, is it next week?
This week's library volunteers.
Oh, yeah, this week is
next
library.
month.
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Sorry, I have the wrong month.
Yeah, it's
I better
April the
look at my
15th.
calendar a
Tax
little
Day,
better, huh?
as we call it, as we normally
Oh,
call it.
tax day, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
We'll give them a check without tax deduction.
oh, I was in April, sorry.
All right, Supervisor McLeod.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I
Mhm.
attended the County Supervisors Legislative Policy Committee Friday. Also had the privilege of attending the Harvest Dinner. They put on a great dinner every year. Also attended the Fair Relocation Committee, and as Supervisor Pancrazzi stated, they've been combined. Colonel Suggs has realized that the midway relocation is just got way out of hand, way too expensive, and we would not want to try to explain to the general public why we're spending $10–12 million to move it temporarily. So I appreciate that they recognized that. It seemed like it was going to be not a big deal at first, and it just kept ballooning and ballooning. So great to be working in a positive, forward manner with them. Also attended the CSA, County Supervisors Association Board meeting in Phoenix, and the Arizona Commerce Authority meeting as well.
Wow.
That's all I got.
Supervisor Simmons.
Attended Pioneer Days out in Welton. It was raining at the beginning. By the time we got to the end, it had quit, so transitioned
out,
there. Attended the Battle Color Ceremony out at MCAS. Also attended the Jazz of Yuma fundraiser over at the Country Club. Attended Welton Mohawk Irrigation Drainage District Board meeting. Library kids at Mohawk School, I got to go down and read Dr. Seuss to them, so that's always a fun time. Held my monthly Foothills community meeting in the Foothills, and also attended a Coyote Wash community meeting out in Walton, as well as attended Mado Friday and Saturday night.
Oh yeah, I worked out there too.
Or worked out there, one of the two.
About that.
And that's it.
All right. Well, we spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. Last week, and it was a very busy time. I think that we may have to write a report eventually about the results or the meetings that we've had. I do want to highlight the fact that Supervisor McLeod got a little bit ahead of the game. I I don't know if everybody is, I hope everybody got a copy of that letter sent by the mayor of Yuma. Basically with his suggestions for a joint use facility, which will be put in the agenda for a future meeting. And, we can then later on discuss altogether the pros and cons of these, of the, not recommendation, of the invitation to participate. I like the concept, I like the idea, I like to discuss it a little further because I think it deals with the need for a better facility to hold our public hearings, our public meetings. I don't think it necessarily deals with the rest of the issues that we have. So we'll be looking at that and putting it in front of you for discussion at a later future date. Other than that, I think we cover. Susan? Oh, wait a minute. I was going to ask a question, and that is, as much as we think we haven't been impacted by the coronavirus yet, there may be a situation where it really gets to us in a way that we have to make arrangements for people to work out of their houses or for those type of things. And I think we need to be proactive with that. I mean, it may impact conferences and trainings that people go out to. I think we need to start working on a plan to deal with this. If we don't have to use it or need it, that's fine. But if we do, I'd rather think I think the health department is doing an excellent job of getting prepared for anything. I don't know if we're doing the same at administrative level, but I'd like to see something like a plan B or whatever we call it, or a plan A for in case we get this, some sort of preparation. Yeah, some sort of preparation to deal with this, because I think you can't wait until it happens. We got to be more proactive on this. Okay, anything?
Great minds think alike. John Smith and I were just speaking before he left the meeting about setting up a meeting for Yuma County as an employer and what we would do in the event of a coronavirus, how we prepare for that, continuity of operations, people working remotely, et cetera. So the county attorney, HR director, health director, emergency management director, and myself will be meeting to talk about that. So we will have a plan of action, contingency plan in case that does happen to us as an employer, and how we deal with our employees and whether they should come to work or stay home or work remotely or have time off. So there's a lot of issues that employers around the country are dealing with that we'll be preparing for. So thank you for that. I attended the NACO conference and the Capitol Hill visits, and as the chairman and Paul said, it was very informational. I think we educated people. They were very open to hearing our issues. They really liked all the details in the packets that we left behind. The staff members are going to be following up with Paul Melcher on a number of issues that are in the pipeline, and Paul's been working hard on that. Also, I attended the Midnight at the Oasis and worked at the Rotary booth. So we sold lots of food and kept very busy with that event. And I'll talk with Paul about doing a summary of the visit so that you know kind of which offices were interested in which topics. And unfortunately, this year, ACO did not arrange for us to meet with senators because the senators are not the senators that they used to be when we had those traditional group meetings with both senators at the same time. So next year, we'll be refining our list of people that we visit and make sure that we're including either individually as Yuma County or as a group with the rest of the counties meeting with the senators. So that's going to be very important moving forward. I know Paul has been in communications with McSally's office on the fairgrounds, and they're very supportive of what we need to do, and just putting it on their radar in case we do need gap funding that we're unable to find through any other means. So it was a good trip. Thanks.
Okay, is there anything else on the agenda that anyone wants to address? I've left the open to the public meeting available. Sure, step up. We do need your name.
My name is Deborah Rapp. I live on 14307 South Avenue 4E. I'd like to address you about the Second Amendment. There are a lot of people who would like to attend your meetings, but you do it in the mornings and everybody works. So I was wondering if you could do a special meeting of some kind where people that work can be here to address you about the Second Amendment sanctuary issues. Is that possible?
We have meetings scheduled by the state. It's sort of, they're scheduled under state statute, but we can move the meetings. Again, as I said earlier, I don't know if this is an issue that we really, want to get into. As as I stated before, we normally conduct a very nonpartisan, bipartisan type environment. But if the rest of the board or 2 or 3 members of the board are willing to, I can schedule it. I can schedule a meeting to discuss this particular item.
There's a lot of people that would like to address you on it, but everybody works, so they can't be here early in the morning.
Right, we can look at it.
Okay, I'd appreciate that because I would like to talk to you about it.
All right.
Thank
you. Anybody else? If not, then that takes care of business this morning. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.